The story begins with the female protagonist revealing that she was betrayed after devoting everything to the man she trusted the most. She reflects on the cost of her trust as he abandoned her in a dungeon. Introducing herself as June Carentia, she explains that the man who betrayed her was once her closest companion and the main character of this world. Fabian Ignis. This world is based on a video game called The Sacred War, where players save the world from the Demon Lord alongside Fabian. One day, June transmigrated into a character from the game and found herself in a dungeon, left as a sacrifice by the villagers. It was Fabian who rescued her. When Fabian greets her, he expresses surprise at finding her alone in the dungeon and praises her resilience despite the terrifying situation. June, although surprised by his words, thanks him hesitantly. Now she joined Fabian's corps as a support mage and embarked on a journey to defeat the Demon Lord. Knowing the game's strategy, she believed her transmigration into June Carentia was no coincidence and was tied to the mission of defeating the Demon Lord. However, at a critical moment when they had the villain cornered, Fabian turned back time. This reset was essential to achieve the true ending of the Sacred War. During this second playthrough, everyone in Fabian's corps returned to the past, confident that her memories from the first playthrough and Fabian's role as the main character would ensure he remembered her location and saved her again. June felt reassured, but to her shock, Fabian never came, fully aware that his absence would lead to her death. His failure to rescue her revealed the truth: he had deliberately abandoned her. June feels betrayed and disheartened, calling Fabian a traitor for abandoning her after all her sacrifices. As she despairs over whether Fabian will come to save her, she suddenly hears a noise and notices a Balrog approaching. Realizing she's in danger, she acknowledges her limitations as a support mage, unable to attack, defend, or heal. Struggling to stand, she fears this might be the end for her. As the Balrog advances, someone appears, and she hopes it's Fabian. Instead, a voice questions how a human unable to handle a single Balrog ended up in the dungeon. Turning, she recognizes the man as Mayor Knox, a character who surprises her with his presence in this area. Mayor, who isn't a playable character and far stronger than this dungeon's level, mentions arriving before the other knights. Confused, June wonders what someone like Mayor could be doing here, sword in hand. Watching him, June is surprised and wonders if this is some kind of hidden storyline she didn't know about. Determined to assist, she readies herself. However, Mayor strikes the Balrog with his sword, releasing an immense energy that defeats it in a single blow. June is awestruck, realizing that such power is expected from Mayor Knox, the final boss of the Sacred War. She recalls that Mayor is not a playable character and serves as Fabian's rival. In the second playthrough, just before defeating the Demon Lord, Mayor reappears, claiming he must eliminate the Demon Lord's curse within him. But instead of helping, Mayor awakens as the Demon Lord's hidden core and becomes the real Demon Lord of the game, making him the ultimate enemy to defeat in order to win. June wonders why the game's final boss is showing interest in her. Mayor then asks her name, and after hearing it, he gets straight to the point, offering her a place in his corps, the Dark Knights. June finds herself in a tent with Mayor Knox and feels uneasy. Mayor asks her again to join his corps, the Dark Knights. June wants to refuse but fears how Mayor might react. Hesitantly, she asks for time to think it over, but Mayor presses her, questioning what there is to consider since this is a great opportunity. Internally, June acknowledges Mayor's point, as many envy the chance to join the powerful Dark Knights, led by the formidable Archduke Mayor Knox. However, she firmly decides against it. Joining him would align her with the Demon Lord's forces, given that Mayor is destined to become the game's final boss. This would pull her away from the main storyline and her dream of a peaceful life. After the game's conclusion, Mayor insists that his army is the best and argues that no one else would value a support-type mage like June. She reluctantly agrees, unable to deny the truth of his statement. However, she realizes that joining him would mean aligning with the Demon Lord and desperately tries to think of a way out. June decides to downplay her abilities, hoping Mayor will lose interest. She expresses gratitude for his offer but emphasizes her limited skills in support magic, suggesting he doesn't know her capabilities well enough. Mayor momentarily agrees, admitting he was hasty, and June feels relieved, thinking her plan worked. However, Mayor surprises her by suggesting they assess her abilities first and discuss the matter again, leaving June baffled at how he reached that conclusion. June is startled when Mayor implies she should stay in the dungeon, teasing that it must feel cozy for her. Shocked and scared, she internally protests, especially when strange monsters begin approaching. She desperately wishes to escape but hesitates to use her magic, fearing Mayer will discover her true abilities. As Mayer begins to leave, June realizes she has no choice but to act to survive. She uses her magic to rise into the air, catching Mayer's attention. She approaches him, and Mayer, impressed, acknowledges her exceptional talent. He declares that her skills are no ordinary abilities and confirms that she's the kind of talent he has been searching for. June feels panicked, realizing she's in trouble. Although her level has been reset for the second playthrough, her stats and skills have carried over, allowing her to instinctively execute a perfectly timed move. Mayer, noticing her hesitation, directly questions why she's so reluctant to join him, wondering if she's already part of another corps. June nervously denies it, insisting his is the first corps she's encountered, while internally fretting about hiding the fact she's on her second playthrough. Mayer smirks and asks if she still has feelings for Fabian, catching her off guard. Shocked, June wonders how he could possibly know but tries to laugh it off, awkwardly denying it. Mayer, unimpressed by her deflection, states that he dislikes wasting time and decides to cut straight to the point. June realizes Mayer has figured out that she retains memories from the first playthrough, especially since he directly mentioned Fabian. When Mayer refers to the first playthrough, June accidentally confirms the terminology by responding, which makes her panic. Mayer, amused, explains that her strange behavior gave her away, and reveals that he also remembers everything from the first playthrough, as does Fabian Ignis. June is shocked at how quickly Mayer pieced everything together and wonders if it's due to his status as the final boss. Mayer admits that, at first, he thought he was losing his mind when he noticed the past repeating itself. Mayer reveals that while events seem to be repeating from the past, one person has been acting differently, Fabian Ignis. He informs June that Fabian deliberately avoided her, knowing she was in the dungeon but choosing to go elsewhere. Mayer warns June that waiting for Fabian is pointless, as he won't come to her aid. This triggers a memory for June from the first playthrough. In a dangerous situation, Fabian had nearly lost his arm. June, despite being low on holy power, had used it to heal him, transferring his wound to herself. Fabian, initially relieved and overjoyed that she saved him, quickly noticed her injury. He panicked, realizing what she had done, and desperately tried to keep her awake and conscious as she sat on the floor in pain. June reflects on her sacrifice from the first playthrough, where she transferred Fabian's injury to herself to save him. Despite her arm eventually recovering in the second playthrough, her efforts had been in vain. She then deduces that Fabian has likely gone to the Ignota dungeon to retrieve the Ring of Flames, a powerful artifact. Mayer confirms her deduction, praising her intelligence but questioning why she would refuse his offer. June deflects, suggesting Fabian must have had his reasons for pursuing the item. Mayer then probes further, questioning if she truly misses being labeled as Fabian's dog, or if she's simply a good person. June acknowledges the nickname, and Mayer offers her everything she could possibly desire, leaving June unsure of how to respond. June hesitates, and asks Mayer if he really wants someone who's been discarded. Mayer firmly replies that if someone is incredibly valuable, then their reputation doesn't matter to him. He values effectiveness above all else, which is why he went out of his way to rescue her. He then questions if she still wishes to remain loyal to Fabian. June is taken aback by his confession, realizing he specifically came to rescue her. Mayer emphasizes how much he wants her on his side and states that her refusal would only strengthen his determination. He reiterates his seriousness and asserts that Fabian is incapable of defeating the Demon Lord, urging her to join his Dark Knights to accomplish this goal together. When June asks why he's so intent on recruiting her, she speculates it's because she retained her memories from the first playthrough and turned out to be a more skilled mage than expected. Mayer agrees, acknowledging both as valid reasons. Mayer, pointing out that he didn't know about her memories or abilities when he came to rescue her. Mayer cryptically responds, implying that she might be more valuable than she realizes. Frustrated, June thinks to herself that he didn't truly answer her question. She reflects on how Fabian, who had worked with her before, still discarded her, leaving her wondering what makes Mayer so certain about her worth. As she follows Mayer, June grows increasingly anxious, questioning whether he remembers her betrayal in the first playthrough. She recalls her desperate attempt to eliminate Mayor Nox, the Demon Lord's core, before the final battle in the hopes of defeating the true Demon Lord during the first playthrough, instead of waiting for the second. June remembers how she manipulated the Dark Knights by providing false information about a high-level dungeon that even Mayer couldn't clear. She hoped this would lead to his downfall, but her plan ultimately failed. Meanwhile, she observes the crowd cheering for Mayer and the Dark Knights, their loyalty unwavering. June reflects on her failed attempt to eliminate Mayer in the first playthrough, Despite providing false information about an unbeatable dungeon, Mayer cleared it effortlessly along with several others, forcing her to abandon her plan. She rationalizes that if Mayer had known about her betrayal, he would have killed her on sight instead of rescuing her. As Mayer turns to address her, he confidently tells June to forget about Fabian, labeling him a failed hero. He criticizes her for dedicating herself to the wrong person, leaving June to observe his expression closely. She concludes that Mayer is unaware of her previous betrayal, as he would have acted differently if he knew. Internally, she thinks that Mayer himself is the reason Fabian failed, believing the Demon Lord would have been defeated if time hadn't reversed. Mayer then reassures June, claiming the situation isn't her fault but Fabian's failure. He emphasizes that she witnessed it firsthand, Fabian losing the war against the Demon Lord. Mayer predicts a similar outcome in the current timeline, unless June changes her allegiance and joins him. Situation, questioning Mayer's motives. She acknowledges that while Mayer plans to kill the Demon Lord this time, he would ultimately become the next great villain himself. Frustrated, she wonders why she should work for someone destined to be the future Demon Lord, and considers returning to Fabian despite everything. June dismisses the idea that she lacks confidence. She believes in herself but considers Fabian too important. He's the main character and the only one capable of saving the world. To her, he represents the safest and most reliable path to a happy future. In contrast, Mayer offers an uncertain future, requiring her to gamble with an outcome she's unfamiliar with. Torn between loyalty and survival, June struggles to find a way out of her predicament. She does, however, note that Mayer's stats are significantly higher than Fabian's, adding to her dilemma. June evaluates the situation further, analyzing Mayer's capabilities. She acknowledges that while Mayer has superior attack power compared to Fabian, his effectiveness against the Demon Lord is limited. Since Mayer shares the same darkness attribute as the Demon Lord, his attacks have no effect until the Demon Lord's HP drops to a certain level. This creates a major problem for the Dark Knights, as Mayer, being their main damage dealer, becomes ineffective in solo combat. June realizes this is why Fabian is critical, to weaken the Demon Lord enough for Mayer to deliver the killing blow. Without Fabian's involvement, Mayer is essentially useless in defeating the Demon Lord. Moreover, Mayer's darkness attribute cannot simply be converted into holiness, which seems like an insurmountable obstacle, until June recalls a skill she possesses. As she reviews her abilities, June finds hope in her skill change attribute, which allows her to invert specific attributes for a set duration. June decides to take control of the situation, realizing her unique position. She thinks to herself that her change attribute skill could be the key to altering Mayer's attribute, enabling him to effectively fight the Demon Lord. Although she had never needed to use this skill before, since most monsters in the world lack attributes or are aligned with darkness, this might be the perfect opportunity. Reflecting on Fabian's decision to cast her aside, June realizes he likely believed she had shared all her knowledge from the first playthrough. However, she had deliberately withheld critical information about dungeons and items that only a player would know. Without her, she is certain that Fabian will fail in this playthrough. Determined to take matters into her own hands, June tells Mayer, "I have one condition." Internally, she acknowledges the danger of entrusting the world's fate solely to Fabian. Mayer, intrigued, asks her what that condition might be. As June considers her next move, she thinks, "I've thought it through. I know what I can do for June Carentia." Confident in her plan, she prepares to strike a deal with Mayer, aligning her goals with her unique abilities. June finds herself unexpectedly living in June Carentia's body, a situation she neither chose nor wanted. She feels a deep sense of guilt, as though she has taken June's life from her. Determined to make amends, she resolves to do everything she can to honor June's existence. As Fabian approaches, she decides on a single course of action. Recognizing that June, as a support mage, has always lived in the shadows, she vows to ensure June's name is remembered in this world's history. This, she believes, is the only way to atone for inhabiting her body. June boldly tells Mayer that she wants the name of June Carentia to be remembered in history. Hearing this, Mayer laughs, surprised by her unexpected condition, and comments that he didn't realize she was so eager for fame. June, thinking to herself, acknowledges how Mayer must perceive her but remains resolute. Mayer steps closer and assures her that if she stands by his side in defeating the Demon Lord, her name will indeed be immortalized. With no reason left to refuse him, June decides to seize this final opportunity in life. Determined to survive until the end and live a peaceful and happy future, she accepts Mayer's offer to join the Dark Knights. Mayer praises her decision, confidently stating that she won't regret choosing him over Fabian. He promises to treat her well, pledges his full support, and encourages her to approach him if she ever faces any difficulties. June jokes with Mayor, remarking that he's treating her almost like a vice captain. Mayor responds earnestly, saying he's willing to do whatever he can for her and suggests returning to his base to discuss more. June questions if she needs training first, but Mayor expresses complete trust in her abilities, dismissing Fabian's judgment as foolish. Walking beside Mayor, June finds it strange to badmouth Fabian together, but she goes along with it, calling Fabian a dumbass. Determined, she resolves not to regret her choice. At the Dark Knight's base, Mayor introduces June as the newest member, confidently announcing her name. June greets the group politely, introducing herself as a support-type mage. The Dark Knights, albeit hesitant, express their willingness to work with her. June observes the Dark Knights and notes their confused expressions, realizing how absurd the situation must seem to them. Mayor calls for Axion, the flame mage, whose powerful magic is evident even in his appearance. June recognizes him as the core of the Dark Knights. Mayor introduces June as a new colleague and instructs Axion to take good care of her. When Axion inquires if she'll be part of the main force, Mayor not only confirms it, but announces June as the new vice captain. Shocked, June grabs Mayor's hand and questions his decision, leaving the rest of the Dark Knights equally stunned. Mayor reassures her, reminding her of his promise to provide the best treatment. He laments Mayor's words, thinking there's a significant difference between being treated like a vice captain and actually being one. Mayor teases her, pointing out how most people would jump at the opportunity, but she seems reluctant. June defends herself, claiming she knows her limits. Mayor tries to sweeten the deal by mentioning how a vice captain's name gets more historical recognition, but offers to reconsider if she's truly against it. Without hesitation, June accepts the position, leaving the Dark Knights murmuring about her potential hidden talents. She reflects on how Mayor knew exactly how to tempt her with the prospect of fame. Mayor then delegates Axion to guide June until they reach their base, as he needs to attend a debriefing on their recent dungeon raid. Mayor advises June to ask Axion any questions she has, to which she agrees. As June and Axion walk together, Axion comments on Mayor's unusual behavior, stating he has never seen His Grace act that way before. Curious, June asks what he means. Axion explains that when she suddenly grabbed Mayor's hand, he neither reacted harshly nor pulled away, which was out of character for him. Normally, Mayor would glare with disdain or shake off anyone who touched him. Axion adds that Mayor even made a joke, which was highly uncharacteristic. He goes on to remark that Mayor personally recruiting someone into the Dark Knights is already a rare occurrence. Axion suggests that June must possess some significant merit, pointing out how her presence alone reduced the raid time by 2/3. This, he explains, might indicate a strong synergy between her magic and the Dark Knights. As June and Axion continue their conversation, June hesitantly addresses him, saying she has something to clarify. Axion, realizing her tone, apologizes, admitting that the situation is unusual and has left him flustered. June quickly explains that she never asked Mayor if she could join the Dark Knights. It was Mayor who offered her the position. Axion immediately understands and apologizes again, acknowledging that she must be referring to his earlier remarks. June reflects internally, recalling her first meeting with Axion during a dungeon raid where she had been invited to help as a test. She remembers how awkward that initial interaction had been, and how he seems to remember it. In June's past memory, Axion had voiced his concerns to Mayor, warning that it was unlikely for a support-type mage to survive in the dungeon alone and suspecting that June might be a trap. Mayor responded calmly, stating that she was just a mage who had been imprisoned there, but even if she was a regular human, there could still be complications, especially if she clung to him, begging to join the Dark Knights. Hearing this conversation from a distance, June felt both frustrated and insulted. She thought about how she had almost died in the dungeon and found Mayor's assumptions offensive. Determined to make her stance clear, she interrupted their conversation and, with firm resolve, stated that while she appreciated their help, she would never beg to join the Dark Knights. She swore this on the name of Saint Marianne, leaving no room for doubt about her intentions. He asks her to call him Axion and introduces himself as a ranged attacker in the Saint platoon. Jun, surprised by his quick acceptance, recalls that in the first playthrough, Axion often clashed with Fabian and Mayor, as he felt it was unfair to compare the two. Now, understanding Axion's significance in the Dark Knights, she realizes it's advantageous to maintain a good relationship with him. She expresses her eagerness to work with him, and Axion apologizes again, explaining that during their earlier encounter, He was being tested as a commander in the same dungeon raid. June thinks to herself that Axion's explanation clears up a lot of things, and then asks if she had ruined his test. Axion reassures her that, on the contrary, her actions contributed to him receiving an excellent evaluation. As they move along, Axion points out that the villagers have gathered. One of the men from the village approaches Mayor and thanks him profusely for saving them. He informs Mayor that they've prepared a modest show of gratitude and invites him to participate. June observes the man's behavior and deduces that he's trying to curry favor with Mayor and the Dark Knights. She finds his excessive bowing and scraping overly transparent and annoying. Mayor, unfazed, dismisses the offer and sternly tells the Dark Knights they don't have time for unnecessary festivities, as they need to leave immediately. The villager, visibly flustered, pleads with Mayor to reconsider, claiming they've shown the utmost sincerity. He desperately calls out, trying to stop Mayor from leaving. Man, thinking about how foolish he is to believe Mayor would entertain such manipulative behavior, she turns to Axion, suggesting they should leave as well. However, the man suddenly recognizes June and exclaims in disbelief that she's alive, shocking her. He identifies her as the village's only mage and insists she must close the gate immediately. June, frustrated, retorts, asking if he even understands what support means, emphasizing that she cannot handle such tasks alone. The man, ignoring her explanation, becomes frantic, yelling that the gate is opening and accuses her of putting the entire village in danger. He grabs her arm and demands action, his desperation evident. June, overwhelmed, calls out for her father and stepmother. Realizing the weight of the situation, she reflects on how, as a player, she once believed June's presence in the dungeon was merely a narrative device. But now, it's clear she was forcibly thrown in, adding a layer of tragic reality to her backstory. Another villager, a lady, pressures her further, asking how she'd feel if her brother died because of her inaction. June realizes that her parents never tried to help her when she was abandoned, and now they are pretending to care as if nothing happened. The lady claims they were worried, while the man insists they are her family. June understands they are only feigning concern to benefit from her position. Axion questions their sincerity, asking why they didn't search for her before trying to impress Mayor. June explains that such behavior is typical for them, as she was merely a sacrifice they offered to the dungeon, never expecting her to survive. Axion is shocked to hear this. Even fend off a single monster, it made no sense for her to be left alone in the dungeon. Axion criticizes the villagers for their outdated, illogical, and poorly planned actions. June agrees, adding that since she transmigrated into this world, she only had to deal with the villagers temporarily. However, thinking about how the original June endured her entire life in such a miserable village fills her with sympathy and disgust for the villagers. June's mother insists on meeting Mayor to thank him for saving June, claiming it's necessary to properly show gratitude. June shuts down the idea, saying Mayor is busy and that she's already thanked him enough. The knights nearby seem hesitant, debating whether they should step in, as the couple claims to be June's family. June, however, confronts her parents directly, accusing them of not being genuinely happy about her survival. She reminds them of how they had thrown her into the dungeon to die, asking if they had already forgotten. Her father dismisses her words, laughing awkwardly and claiming she's simply upset. He brushes off her accusations, insisting that family bonds should smooth everything over. June wonders how her parents can justify their actions and still call themselves parents. Axion steps in, suggesting that June should bid farewell to her family. As the Dark Knights have more dungeons to close and cannot afford delays, her father is shocked to learn that June has joined the Dark Knights and questions how it happened, insinuating that she must have begged to be accepted. June responds confidently, stating that she earned her place by proving herself. Her mother then seizes the opportunity, asking if the Dark Knights are recruiting and suggesting they take Yugen, another family member, along with. June firmly rejects the idea of sending Yugen to the Dark Knights, pointing out how absurd it is. She emphasizes that Yugen is only 10 years old, far too young and inexperienced for such a dangerous role, as he struggles even with simple tasks. Axion, observing the chaotic situation, decides to step in. He orders the villagers to leave, dismissing their claim of being June's family. He sarcastically reminds them that his earlier warnings about wasting time were apparently ignored. The man tries to defend their actions, claiming they thought Yugen would be more useful to the Dark Knights than June, but their excuse only further exposes their selfish motives. The lady desperately calls out to June for help, but June remains unfazed. Axion apologizes to June, acknowledging that he might have taken away her chance to confront her so-called family directly. June dismisses the concern, explaining that it wouldn't have made a difference since they wouldn't have listened anyway. She adds that Axion's actions have actually made her feel better. Axion is relieved to hear this, while June reflects that bonding over mutual disdain for an enemy can genuinely bring people. They will be leaving soon now that the tents are packed, and asks if she needs to prepare a bag. June replies that she's ready to go at any time. As Axion looks at her with a sorrowful expression, June wonders why he's looking at her that way. She realizes he views her as a child who has only had one poor quality dress to wear, and she acknowledges that he's not wrong. While Yugen was always given high-quality clothes despite outgrowing them quickly, she was only given a few worn-out dresses. Reflecting on June's past, June realizes just how much she has endured, something she didn't fully understand before. As the vice captain, she'll receive so much equipment that she won't know what to do with it, including custom-made mage uniforms. June mentions that she already has a uniform, but Axion explains that it's just a basic one worn by regular mages and lacks the badge of a support-type mage. June realizes this is true, but says it doesn't matter, as people can already tell what kind of mage she is by her silver hair. In this world, one's hair color changes based on the magic they use. Axion's red hair signifies his flame magic, while her silver hair marks her as a support-type mage, so a badge isn't necessary to recognize her abilities. Mayor arrives and comments that June's hair color suits her new uniform well. June wonders if he's complimenting her, though she doesn't think she looks particularly good. She assumes he's just saying that she fits in well with the Dark Knights. She thanks him, and Mayor tells her to call him Captain from now on since he's her captain now. June notes that Axion and the others still refer to him as Your Grace, but agrees to call him Captain. Mayor also mentions that the regular uniform won't be enough, and that a new one will be made for her once they reach the base. He assures her it will be ready before the welcome feast. June thinks to herself about Mayor's dissatisfaction with his own uniform, despite it being his own. Mayor then informs her that he has arranged a horse for her, which she and Axion can find at the stables. June is pleasantly surprised, as only elite knights usually get to ride horses, and although it isn't as comfortable as a car, it's much better than walking. In the first playthrough, she only got to ride a horse later, but had to walk again soon after. Axion asks Mayor if June can actually ride, to which Mayor confidently replies that she can. Axion is surprised by this, as commoners rarely learn to ride horses, but June brushes it off as nothing special. She can't afford or ride horses, since they are valuable possessions. She learned to ride during her time in Fabian's Corps, but she can't share that with Axion. June then explains that the captain must have asked her to join because he believes she will be immediately useful, recognizing her potential. She notes Mayor's obsessive need for control, always aligning his corps to his plans. He rarely changes members of his elite troops, and even talented newcomers must work their way up from the bottom, despite proving their skills. Only when Mayor decides to make space in his elite team can someone officially join. June's appointment as vice captain is unprecedented, and she wonders if Mayor did it to prevent her from wandering off on her own. Axion remarks on how much June knows about Mayor, and June responds by saying it's easy to tell just by looking at him. She reflects on needing to be more cautious going forward, not revealing how she actually learned about Mayor. The three of them, June, Axion, and Mayor, ride horses together. June thinks to herself that Mayor is in front, Axion is beside her, and she's at the very front. She recalls that even though she spent a long time with Fabian, she never rode in the front, a spot always taken by his childhood friends, April and Decca. June reflects on how she wasn't as important as them and wonders why she ever thought Fabian would return for her. Having been betrayed once, she resolves to keep her distance from Mayor. She reminds herself that Mayor is only helping her to overthrow the Demon Lord, and nothing more. Finally, Mayor encourages them to ride on. As June rides with Mayor and Axion, a group of people notices her and starts talking among themselves. One person wonders if June is alive and why she's with them, while another expresses surprise that she, a support-type mage, would join the Dark Knights. A young boy asks Mrs. Carentia how this happened, and she responds, not knowing anything about it. June thinks to herself that they must be too embarrassed to mention what happened earlier, as they were kicked out by the Knights. Mayor then turns to June and asks if she would like to receive a territory as a welcome gift. June is confused and asks about it. Mayor explains that being a landowner is not too bad because one can earn money through taxes and, most importantly, has the power to change village leadership as desired. An old man nearby is shocked by this revelation. Mayor suggests that since this is June's hometown, it would be a good idea to support it and offers to make it easy for her to start a guild. Meanwhile, Villagers notice June and comment that she's now a member of the Dark Knights and seemingly an important figure if she's in a position to receive land. They speculate that establishing a guild here could rapidly improve their village, but doubt whether June would want to help, given how the village chief ordered her into the dungeon and her parents' unkindness. They also consider that certain individuals might hinder their chance for a better life. June, however, is unimpressed and thinks everyone in the village was complicit in her past suffering. Yet now they act innocent. She tells Mayor that managing a territory with people like this would be a hassle. June reflects that she'd rather face another dungeon than deal with the villagers and their hostility. She then tells Mayor she'd prefer a better reward in the future, to which he agrees. Internally, she feels that while things may not change significantly, at least her parents and the village chief will face humiliation. June appreciates the protection of being part of the Dark Knights, contrasting it with Fabian's corps, which was often scammed and ridiculed. Feeling relieved to be leaving the village, she anticipates a long journey ahead before reaching the base. June contemplates whether to spend her time researching or experimenting with her special ability. This unique skill, derived from the game's system, allows her to access the game's UI through the status window. With it, she can check her level, the ability stats of allies and enemies, their experience points, buff types, and cooldown delays. June considers this ability akin to cheating, as it gives her access to information unavailable to anyone else in this world, making her feel distinctly advanced. June reflects on her current situation, realizing she's now at level 23, having gained 3 levels from fighting alongside the Dark Knights in the dungeon. She contrasts this with her first playthrough, where Fabian saved her but focused only on clearing the dungeon efficiently, dealing only with essential monsters. Due to the team's lack of strong members at the time, he reluctantly included her despite her inability to use her skills effectively, which earned her a poor reputation among the expedition team. In stark contrast, becoming the vice captain of the Dark Knights at level 20 was an unprecedented and surprising development. She initially thought it might be because Mayor didn't know her level. However, she recalls Mayor reassuring her that leveling up wouldn't be an issue. Despite this, June still worries that her presence might lower the average level of the elite Dark Knights, making her feel unworthy of her position. Mayor confidently remarks that their team's average level is still higher than Fabian's expedition team. June, though momentarily speechless, agrees with his assessment. Mayor's impressive level of 80% significantly boosts their average, even with her lower level of 23, resulting in an overall average of 50. She recalls that in her first playthrough, Fabian struggled to raise his team's average level to 60, the minimum required to face the Demon King. In contrast, Mayor, with his exceptional level of from the start, stands out as an overpowered leader. June reflects on Mayor's overwhelming abilities, noting his exceptional defense against physical attacks, and his role as a key figure in the battle against the Demon King. His magic attack power and overall stats are remarkably high, making him seem almost unbeatable. Although his magic defense is slightly weaker compared to his other abilities, it is still superior to most. June recalls her failed attempt to assassinate him in the first playthrough, realizing she underestimated his capabilities. She regrets not using that time to grow stronger herself, and begins to wonder if a certain individual from that time joined the expedition team. June recalls Pelham, who at the time was a rising star of the Dark Knights. He was kind and gentle toward her because she reminded him of his older sister. To assassinate Mayor, June had manipulated Pelham, using him to disclose information about a dungeon Mayor couldn't conquer. However, her plan failed. Mayor survived, leveled up significantly, and even returned with Pelham. Ironically, Pelham was grateful to her, as the incident improved his standing within the Knights. June feels remorse for exploiting his trust, and decides that if she encounters him again in the future, she will treat him kindly. Currently, he has not yet joined the team. While traveling, Mayor notices June's unusual expression and asks why she looks that way. June panics internally, realizing she might have stared at the system interface for too long, and quickly brushes it off, saying it's nothing. Mayor remarks that she seems bland. June, feeling uneasy, wonders if her muttering to herself made Mayor suspicious. She resolves to be more cautious in the future, and decides to only use her system abilities when she's alone. Riding to the base feels tedious to her, but she knows she must be more careful going forward. As night falls, the Knights settle in to rest. One Knight comments that everyone at the base will be surprised when they return, especially because the captain recruited a supporting magician. June finds this a bit odd, reflecting that players have called Mayor a cheat due to his ability to collect valuable talents for his side in the great war between gods and demons. She wonders why someone like him has never directly recruited anyone before. June then asks if the captain isn't known for his ambition to gather talented individuals, to which Axion confirms, noting that Mayer treats people based on their abilities, not their backgrounds. He explains that positions in the expedition team are determined by ability, not by background or donations. Jinya, a shield maker from the Red Flame Army, mentions that Mayer isn't someone who lacks money and is in fact very generous. Began, a trader from the same army, adds that Mayer possesses a lot of money, power, and ability, making him a rare and superior individual. He notes Mayer's bright appearance and speculates that this is why the captain joined their team. Axion dismisses their comments, saying he doesn't listen to people weaker than him. Began emphasizes that in the dungeon, what matters most is how useful they are, and those who can't enter the dungeon right away will have to start from the third group. Jinya compliments June, mentioning that she's truly amazing because she worked well with Mayer for about 3 years and fits his type perfectly. June wonders if she can be considered Mayer's favorite talent, as everyone seems to think she's his ideal type. Jinya then mentions that the topic is drifting off course, noting that the Dark Knights are not the best adventurers, but talents from everywhere still want to join. June asks if this means the Knights don't need to recruit since people will come to them. One Knight confirms this, and June speculates if Mayer might have discovered and recruited a new talent. She recalls Mayer's offer to her to join the Dark Knights. Jinya replies that there's already a precedent for June joining, so it's unclear what Mayer will do next. Began adds that many elite individuals dream of becoming a Mayer Nox scout because they want to be like June. Jinya agrees, saying that the entrance exam is a fundamental part of the Dark Knights, and asks June if she has heard about it. The entrance exam for the Dark Knights is known for being a spectacle, where local talents gather and display their abilities. Before joining other knights, candidates often try their luck, with many retaking the test multiple times. Jinya mentions that joining the Knights can be difficult, and some may be jealous of June for joining so suddenly. June agrees, acknowledging that if she were in their place, she might feel the same way, questioning how she, a mere supporting magician, could be called the vice captain. However, she reflects that it's surprising to her that these people show goodwill toward her. Jinya reassures her, saying that while some may be jealous, anyone who sees her abilities will accept her. Axion adds that he's not the type to be overly polite, agreeing with Jinya's sentiment of showing off, while Axion mentions that if others want to see her abilities, they will need to go to the dungeon. He also suggests telling someone about it, to which Jinya questions his intention. June reflects on the information she had received earlier, realizing that the entrance exam for the Knights would take place a few weeks after they returned to the base. While Jinya had said some nonsensical things, Axion's suggestion is worth considering. Time has passed quickly, and June now faces the dilemma of whether she can join the expedition team. She also considers that this could be an opportunity to form her own faction in the new Knight group, which could work to her advantage. Mayer tells June to look ahead as they approach their destination, revealing that they are almost at the Principality of Noctentoria, which is their base. As they arrive, the Knights welcome them back, and June is struck by how surprising it is that Mayer already has a base. She realizes that Mayer, being a Grand Duke, has the resources to manage multiple groups of adventurers. June feels a bit like she's cheating in this situation. Mayer welcomes her to Noctentoria and points out that this base is now hers as well. June, who has now stepped foot in Noctentoria Castle, reflects on the feeling of being part of the Dark Knights. Mayer teases her about her earlier disappointment in being treated like a noble, but she denies it. He reminds her that the base is hers to remember carefully, and whether he's bothered by losing the chance to fight the Demon King. She also considers the possibility that Mayer might think she hasn't completely let go of her feelings from the first round. Laughing, June reassures him, but internally she realizes that if Mayer doesn't trust her, it could lead to trouble. Mayer then offers to guide her to the castle, but June hesitates, insisting that it's unnecessary since he's busy. Mayer responds that, as the vice captain of the Dark Knights, it's his responsibility to show her the base, emphasizing that nothing is more important than this introduction. June realizes that she can't argue with Mayer's reasoning, but she feels uneasy about visiting the Citadel, especially under Mayer's direct instruction. She considers asking Axion or someone else for help, but when she turns around, she notices that no one is around. She wonders why they all quickly ran away, realizing that Mayer hasn't ordered disbandment yet. When Mayer asks what she's looking around for, June quickly responds, saying it's nothing, and laughs it off, thinking about how strange it is that the others abandoned her so quickly. When Mayer and June arrive at the Citadel, they are greeted by Vince, who expresses relief at Mayer's safe return. June observes that Vince might be the butler, Mayor takes the opportunity to introduce June as the vice captain of their expedition, catching her off guard. Vince is visibly surprised and hesitantly confirms her position. Mayor emphasizes how much effort he put into recruiting such a talent and instructs Vince to treat her well. Vince agrees, still processing the unexpected introduction. June laughs and internally notes that Vince, the butler, seems unaccustomed to Mayor's persistent introduction of her. Mayor then asks June about her preferred type of room, assuring her that he will arrange it as per her wishes. Caught off guard, June hesitates before replying that a room with a big bed would be ideal. She reflects on Mayor's unusual behavior, wondering why he treats her with such goodwill. June attributes it to sharing her memories from the first round, but speculates if Mayor expects more from her than just information. Curiosity about his true intentions begins to build in her mind. As June walks through the castle, servants whisper among themselves. One servant questions who June is, surprised that Mayor personally accompanies her, while another speculates that she might be a new recruit. Embarrassed, June feels unable to lift her head, wishing she could hide, but Mayor's constant attention makes it impossible. The servants continue their chatter, noticing her gray hair and suspecting she might be a supporting magician. They express disbelief that someone with her abilities could join the prestigious Dark Knights, deeming it absurd. June, overhearing their remarks, becomes frustrated, silently cursing how hair color reveals magical ability. She reflects that only those with exceptional powers admire such traits. Realizing Mayor's superior hearing, she wonders if he too heard their comments and is simply choosing to ignore them. June tries to excuse herself by saying, "Looks like I've already looked around," hoping to avoid walking further with Mayor. She thinks to herself that she can no longer keep up with his pace or follow his orders to stay beside him. Mayor, however, responds firmly, "We haven't reached the main castle yet." June attempts another excuse, saying, "I will get confused if I have to remember too many places in one day." Mayor counters her excuse by pointing out, this is not something a member of the expedition team, who has attacked complicated dungeons many times, should say. June wonders if Mayor has seen through her excuses. He then acknowledges, "I know you're inconvenienced by the concern of those around you, but I have to take you with me like this so you can easily remember the existence of the Knights." His words leave June with no choice but to continue alongside him. June realized that Mayor's deliberate guidance might be a strategy to reduce opposition by showing his support for her. However, she still had doubts and questioned if recruiting her to a lower position initially would have prevented issues. Mayor firmly responded that he disliked wasting time and considered her vice captaincy inevitable, as he needed to regularly discuss matters with her. June expressed her gratitude for his trust but internally strategized about the challenges ahead. She concluded that avoiding wasted time required either money or manpower, and in this case, she herself would need to step up. Determined, she reminded herself to do her best and reflected on Axion's advice, wondering if sending others to the dungeon would be necessary as part of her preparation. Mayor approached June and asked if she disliked being assigned tasks by him. June quickly denied it, saying she enjoyed working. She then reflected on her thoughts, realizing that if she worked hard and reached the level of the Dark Knights, she could clear battles with the Demon King and dungeons more safely, ensuring a better future for herself. She also speculated about the potential benefits if Mayor defeated the Demon King and became Emperor. Determined, June assured Mayor that she would do her best in her new position to be worthy of his trust. Mayor, impressed by her resolve, expressed his faith in her and reminded her to come to him if she ever found things difficult or tiring. June pondered on Mayor's leadership skills, noting that his comforting words seemed to be a tactic he might have learned to motivate his subordinates. For the first time, she considered that she might be able to rely on him. June decided to end the tutorial, to which Mayor agreed, saying he would guide her to the main castle later. He then offered to escort her to her room, which left June startled and questioning the necessity of such formality. Mayor casually mentioned that he would have some free time for a while, which puzzled June as she wondered how long a while meant. Mayor clarified it would be until her initiation ceremony was scheduled. June seemed surprised and asked if an initiation ceremony was really necessary. Mayor firmly stated that as the vice captain of the Dark Knights, it was essential. June hesitated, realizing this might require her to give a speech, something she wasn't fond of. When Mayor asked if she had stage fright, June denied it, admitting instead that she simply disliked such formalities. She reflected on how she had always volunteered to handle presentations to avoid group assignments in the past. Mayor firmly told June there was no other choice, encouraging her to do her best for the initiation speech. June felt disheartened, wishing he had reassured her that the speech wasn't necessary. Mayor then mentioned that they had arrived at the White Deer Room, where she would be staying. June was amazed by how luxurious and comfortable it looked, especially the wide, inviting bed. Thanking Mayor, she suggested that he should also rest, to which he agreed and reminded her to call him if she needed anything. As she entered her room and finally found herself alone, June felt immense relief. Reflecting on the overwhelming attention she had received while being with Mayor, she lay down on the bed, enjoying the comfort. Stretching her legs and rolling around, she felt completely at ease, ready to relax after the day's events. June begins to recall dark memories from her past, where she was ridiculed and criticized. Someone had mockingly referred to her as Fabian's loyal dog, questioning her use of sacrifice magic and calling it a foolish choice for a support mage. June justified her actions and her thoughts, reminding herself that her magic allowed Fabian to continue fighting. She felt bitter about how people dismissed her efforts and called her blind for prioritizing others' safety over her own. The next morning, June is woken by a maid calling for the vice captain outside her room. Confused at first, she quickly remembers that she is the vice captain now. Opening the door, June meets Mary, a maid assigned to take care of her during her stay at the castle. Mary politely greets her and offers to bring water for her to wash her face. Surprised by the idea of being cared for in this way, June invites Mary inside, still adjusting to her new status and responsibilities. June reflects on her current situation with surprise and disbelief, wondering why someone would go so far as to help others wash their faces. She notices herbs in the water, a luxury she had never experienced before. Memories from her time in the Fabian expedition resurface, where she was treated poorly despite her sacrifices. Even after losing her arm for the mission, she was dismissed as a useless support mage. June recalls how no one acknowledged that it was her ability that ensured their survival. Although Fabian defended her when she was insulted, his actions felt hollow. He never openly credited her magic for his victory over the devil, only feigning hesitation when questioned about it. This realization taught June a bitter lesson. Sacrifices driven by self-satisfaction earn no recognition from others. Determined not to repeat her past mistakes, she resolves that her time with the Dark Knights will be different. June continues to reflect on her situation, realizing how much her life has improved compared to her time in the Fabian expedition. She resolves never to make unnecessary sacrifices again, recalling how she once ventured alone into dangerous places. She now appreciates the much better work-life balance and compares it to working in a company with excellent benefits, noting that this must be what it feels like to work for a large corporation. Her thoughts are interrupted by Mary, who notices her smiling and asks what she is happy about. June, slightly embarrassed, admits she's simply satisfied with her current reality. Mary then inquires whether June would prefer to have her meal at the leader's restaurant or in her room. June requests Mary to guide her to the restaurant first, as she has a few questions to ask. June asks about Mary's responsibilities, to which Mary explains that her duties include decorating and cleaning the room, maintaining dignity, assisting with schedules, and handling tasks related to supplies. June wonders if Mary's role is similar to that of a secretary and asks if all expeditions have someone like her. Mary clarifies that such care is rare and typically limited to 5 people, excluding the captain and vice captain. She explains that most of the time, her focus is on managing trivial matters so the vice captain can concentrate on dungeon clearing. June recalls Mayor's statement about not liking to waste time and acknowledges that it makes sense coming from him. During a conversation with Mary, June learns that more people are expected to be assigned to her since she holds the position of vice captain. Mary explains that currently, only she has been assigned as a maid because the appointments are still provisional. June reflects on how advantageous it is for Mayor to be both the Grand Duke and the captain, as it grants him ample human resources. However, she considers that having just Mary seems sufficient, as their interaction is undisturbed. This realization comforts her, as it means she doesn't have to worry about additional support. Shaking hands with her assures June that she will do her best to serve as the vice captain's maid. June then requests a simple writing tool, and Mary immediately agrees to prepare it. As Mary steps away, June reflects on her responsibilities. She realizes that if the Dark Knights are to grow strong enough to face the Demon King, she must start her preparations now. Recalling how much time this took even during her first attempt, she decides that it is crucial to act quickly before officially stepping into her role as vice captain. With determination, she resolves to try a specific combination once again to be better prepared. June reflects on the guide she has created for this world. Feeling a sense of accomplishment, she proudly states that it might be the first time she's attempted this, but she managed to complete it in just 2 days. The book contains detailed information about the dungeons she remembers and how to obtain specific items, almost like a genealogy of dungeon knowledge. She recalls consulting this book during her first attempt at sharing dungeon information, though she couldn't reveal its existence at the time. Instead, she had attributed her knowledge to a support mage skill, a clever move in hindsight. June realizes that if she had revealed all her knowledge from her second attempt, it would have led to disastrous consequences. Remembering how Fabian abandoned her to retrieve the fire ring, June now understands the importance of using the dungeon knowledge she shared to defeat the Demon King. She concludes that relying on this information is sufficient to break the cycle of the second attempt. There's no need to hold back or save herself this time. June reflects on her hesitation to share her dungeon knowledge with other expeditions. She recalls being left for dead in a cave, and fears that if Fabian discovers she has memories of her first life, he might kill her this time. Despite her doubts, she acknowledges her struggle to work with Mayer, who is cautious yet alive. Unlike her previous experiences, she debates whether to inform Mayer about the strategy guide. Jun suspects that Mayer's interest might not lie in her abilities as a support mage, but in her extensive knowledge of dungeons. This realization makes her question her worth in the dark nights. If her information is all that matters, she fears she could be betrayed, just as Fabian betrayed her. Having faced such betrayal once, she refuses to endure it again. The entire situation feels suspicious, deepening her mistrust. June contemplates the danger of revealing her strategy guide, which contains dungeon information that even Fabian couldn't access during the first timeline. She notes that the guide, written in Korean, might raise suspicion if discovered, and considers how Mary, despite her loyalty, could unintentionally reveal its existence. June decides it's safer to keep the guide hidden, especially since loyalty without proper compensation might seem unnatural in this world. She resolves to wait until she has a reliable team within the expedition before sharing anything. She rationalizes her decision, believing Mayer wouldn't fault her for withholding information, as he hasn't been fully transparent with her either. For now, survival takes precedence, and she commits to concealing what's necessary. Jun feels self-conscious about spending too much time in her room and decides to eat at the expedition member's restaurant instead of the leader's restaurant, as her appointment as vice captain hasn't been finalized. While enjoying the meal, she notes the high quality of the food, reflecting Mayer's unwillingness to compromise on essentials for the expedition. However, June overhears two expedition members gossiping about her. One boy speculates that Mayer chose her to be his wife, while a girl questions her sudden appointment as vice captain and the rumors of her being a support mage. Annoyed by the strange rumors, June confronts them, asking who spread such information. The boy suggests there's something unusual about her rapid rise, and the girl hints at a possible special relationship between June and Mayer. June thought to herself that she had just overheard a conversation implying that she might be a hidden lover of Mayer. The boy speculated that Mayer might not care about the rumors, but he wondered if Mayer would hate such thoughts. He also remarked that there were many exceptions when it came to the vice captain, suggesting it was unusual. The girl agreed, mentioning that even someone like Mayer could draw irrational conclusions regarding matters of love. The boy continued, expressing disbelief at the idea that it could not be a hidden lover, especially considering the special treatment June received. The girl then mentioned that she had seen Mayer's expression when he intentionally followed June, describing it as one of someone who had fallen in love. The boy then wondered if the two of them had been spending time together recently. June dismissed the idea of Mayer falling in love with her, believing instead that he valued her unique talent. She reflected on how her abilities were extraordinary and acknowledged that she didn't know how to handle the rumors. The thought of being perceived as Mayer's hidden lover felt absurd and distorted her life in unexpected ways. She reasoned that Mayer's only focus was on dungeons and recalled his reputation for being emotionally reserved, making such rumors even more unlikely. However, she noted that people found it easier to believe Mayer could fall in love than to recognize the usefulness of a support mage like her. Although she thought she was accustomed to being undervalued, this situation felt entirely different and frustrating. She resolved to address the ridiculous rumors. Axion approached June and greeted her, mentioning how long it had been since they last met. June, surprised, asked him what he was doing there. Axion explained that he saw someone resembling her and decided to check. He then asked why she was there, pointing out that the restaurant was supposedly for leaders only. June confirmed it but clarified that she hadn't officially joined yet. Axion teased her for being overly strict and asked if she was a principled person. June replied that she preferred avoiding unnecessary conversations, though there was still much to discuss. Axion playfully remarked that he would keep talking regardless, and added one more sentence to the conversation. June felt disappointed in herself for briefly expecting some useful advice. Axion commented on how gossiping could be fascinating, noting how people seemed to enjoy practicing it when something unusual occurred. He criticized those who exaggerated others' affairs, saying that such people only focused on trivial matters and would eventually be removed. June responded by calling him cold, to which Axion affirmed that coldness was necessary for people like them. June reflected on how, in the dungeon, even a small mistake born from false judgment could cost lives, making it essential to judge entrusted matters coldly. Axion added that personal feelings had no place in their battles, and mentioned that even getting offended for mere excitement was unforgivable. June thought about how it made sense that someone who had specifically asked about the knife would not have been pleased to hear Mayer mentioned as gossip. She then remarked that even Axion must not have understood Mayer's intentions initially. Axion clarified that while misunderstanding and blaming orders were different, he did not follow orders rigidly without thought. He acknowledged understanding why such absurd rumors existed, but maintained his own reasoning. When June asked what he believed the reason for the rumors was, Axion responded by stating that June was now undoubtedly one of them. June seemed surprised by his statement, questioning his confidence in her inclusion. Axion admitted he was still uncertain and joked that it would be a significant issue if she ran away before officially becoming the vice captain. June replied that his comment sounded like something worth running away from, to which Axion lightly teased her for being too sensitive. Secret of the Knights, she already knew a lot of information. Despite this, she thought it would be fine as long as they treated her properly. She then commented aloud that if the secret was significant, it might justify her running away. Axion brought up how Mayer had previously stated he had never recruited anyone other than June, to which she replied affirmatively, wondering if it was because she was a support mage. She remarked on the exaggerated reactions of others regarding this matter. Axion admitted that while her role as a support mage might have some influence, the reactions were more likely due to Mayer's unique personality. June thought about how Mayer's sole focus in life was closing dungeon gates, with his joy revolving entirely around dungeons. She realized this must be what others meant about his obsession. Mayer had a reputation for detesting ghosts and demons, and while dungeon closure was encouraged by society, his intense fixation couldn't exactly be called normal. June noted that this was not a story to be spoken of lightly, and speculated that it might be related to the mysterious seed within Mayer's body. However, until more was revealed, it was impossible to truly understand the connection. Axion explained that when a dungeon opens, it must be closed immediately, due to the natural cycle of death and chaos it brings. He mentioned that some individuals, fearing the reputation of the Dark Knights, tend to flee. Most of these deserters, he added, are mere scarecrows, those who attempt to manipulate situations from the shadows or seek fame through shallow efforts, ultimately unworthy of their place. June reflected on this, agreeing that the expectations within the Dark Knights were justified, while joining their ranks might offer opportunities to be invited to other expeditions. It was unlikely for anyone to be treated as just another member here. She also acknowledged that some people, after defeating the Demon King, might regret not having built significant merit despite doing their best to simply. Axion remarked that someone with firm ideals would typically adhere to a predetermined path, though he respected such dedication. However, he couldn't help but worry about the leader, whom he referred to as the only lunatic in the dungeon. June thought to herself that while Axion respected him, her assessment seemed quite cold. She then commented that it seemed like the leader didn't listen to others, before realizing she had also been affected by this tendency in the past. Axion disagreed, stating that June was an exception. He pointed out how much the leader cared about her, mentioning specific examples like choosing the best room for her, offering welcome gifts, and even providing guidance on entering the city, something unheard of before. Axion revealed that he only discovered 2 days ago that the leader even considered such gestures. He noted that June was the only one in the Dark Knights who called him captain, and mentioned how even others had remarked that her hair color matched well with the Dark Knight uniform. June appeared surprised by these revelations. June was surprised by Axion's agitation, as Mayer, during their first meeting, had seemed authoritative yet close to a normal person. His reaction back then wasn't as extreme as Axion's, making her wonder if there was a side of Mayer she hadn't seen, or if Mayer had changed over time. Axion remarked that June stood out from the other members, pointing to Mayer's decision to appoint her as the vice captain. He acknowledged that while her skill was a factor, Mayer's actions reflected something more. June turned back, noticing someone retreating, and thought to herself that they had run away. She then questioned Axion's perspective, suggesting that if Mayer's kindness towards her was solely for clearing the dungeon, it could also validate the rumor that he was being influenced by a lover. However, June mused that if everyone believed this explanation, perhaps the scandal would finally come to an end. Axion suggested that the matter would likely resolve itself after visiting the dungeon once. June agreed, mentioning her intention to handle it with some adjustments. In her thoughts, she acknowledged that she roughly understood what people truly thought. Although she had made efforts to behave cautiously, she realized that if the rumors persisted, there was no need to overthink them. She decided that if the expedition granted her significant privileges, there was no reason not to take advantage of them. June then turned to Axon and asked him where the captain usually had dinner. June stood by the door, knocking gently while wondering if she had come to the right place. From inside the room, a voice invited her in. As she opened the door and stepped inside, she noticed Mayer's expression and thought that he seemed to be in a bad mood. She immediately regretted her timing, thinking she had chosen the wrong moment to approach him. Greeting him formally, she said it had been a while. Mayer acknowledged her presence warmly, asking if she had completed her work well. June observed the sudden change in his tone and thought to herself that his voice had softened significantly. It seemed Mayer was being overly kind toward her, and his mood appeared much better now. Before continuing, June hesitated for a moment, noticing someone else in the room. She realized that the person wasn't wearing the Dark Knight's uniform, but the white robes of a priest. She speculated on their identity. Mayer broke the silence, remarking that the introduction had been somewhat delayed, describing him as the finest priest in their expedition. June reflected that it was her first time meeting Auguste, but she already knew much about him. He was the main healer of the Dark Knights, and was often referred to as Mayer's left arm. Despite having the physique of a battle priest, he was a remarkable healer known for his unique philosophy that stronger muscles led to more effective healing. While the idea seemed ridiculous, no one dared to challenge him due to his intimidating strength. Mayer introduced her formally to Auguste, explaining her future role as the vice captain of the expedition. Auguste greeted her casually, addressing her as sister-in-law, and then excused himself abruptly, leaving June surprised at his sudden departure. Mayer assured her that this was typical of Auguste's behavior and clarified that it did not mean he was displeased. June brushed it off but questioned how Mayer could tell what she was thinking. Mayer responded humorously, claiming to have read it from her. When June doubted how he could see her face without her turning, Mayer joked that he could even interpret the back of her neck. June realized that Mayer had a playful side and joked with everyone, not just her. Mayer then urged her to share the reason for her visit, leaving June uncertain about what to say, as she wasn't entirely sure herself. Regarding the renewal and training of the Dark Knights, Mayer commented that being vice captain didn't seem very enjoyable, noting that June had already been working in the role even before her official appointment. June firmly stated that any task she undertook had to align with her inclinations and be done properly. Reflecting on her situation, she acknowledged that her previous involvement had been more of an outside interference, but now, with time running short, she needed to take charge. Determined, she resolved to share her intentions with Mayer directly. Despite feeling the pressure of his intense focus, which resembled a lion eyeing its prey, June reminded herself not to be intimidated. She resolved to face the situation confidently and present her opinions with dignity, questioning her awareness that the Dark Knights were divided into 3 groups. She reflected on their roles, noting that the first group participated in battles against the Demon King. The second group served as replacements for the first, and the third group had members with potential that needed further verification. Typically, dungeon exploration involved the first and second groups, while lower difficulty dungeons were handled by a mix of the second and third groups. However, she identified a key issue. The third group was as large as the first and second combined. When Jun suggested a solution, Mayer assumed she meant reducing the size of the third group. She clarified that her approach was more radical. Those without the will to fight should be boldly let go. She pointed out that idle members joined only to benefit from the Dark Knight's reputation, emphasizing her discomfort with their lack of commitment, stating that he was not offended by her observations and encouraged her to speak freely. Finally, he invited her to sit down to continue the discussion. June brought up a past incident where the Fabian expedition team outperformed the Dark Knights by focusing on attacking high-level dungeons. She explained that this strategy had worked for them and believed it was something the Dark Knights should consider implementing now. Mayer acknowledged that the Fabian expedition team seemed to have inside knowledge about dungeon openings, which he attributed to June's involvement. While June admitted she had secretly shared information with Fabian, Mayer emphasized that the current situation was different. Both he and Fabian were aware of the Great Dungeon, and now whoever closed it first would gain significant recognition. In such a scenario, the side with more people would hold an advantage, ensuring it wouldn't play out like the first time. June concluded that the Dark Knights needed to refine their structure and strategy, suggesting that even their strongest members required proper support, the complexity of separating the teams, and acknowledged that such changes would take considerable time. June agreed, noting that immediate improvements would likely face resistance. In the meantime, she intended to focus on another task, which piqued Mayer's curiosity as he asked about her plans. June contemplated the task ahead, likening it to picking out hidden gems from a pile of rotten tangerines. She expressed her intention to nurture unrecognized talents within the expedition team if she became the vice captain. Her goal was to identify and develop those hidden talents, and when these individuals rose to prominence within the Dark Knights, it would validate her abilities as a mentor. This, in turn, would solidify her position and reduce the rumors surrounding her. She reflected that relying on Mayer for this issue might not have been effective, as he likely didn't pay attention to such matters, especially since he didn't seem to care about his reputation. June questioned whether Mayer even knew about the rumors, and dismissed the idea of being linked to him romantically. When Mayer asked about her method for nurturing talent, June explained that there was no shortcut to growth. It required hands-on experience and learning through challenges. Mayer agreed, appreciating the practical approach, and acknowledging that her involvement could bring about meaningful changes. Convinced by her plan, he gave his approval. Overjoyed, June expressed her gratitude for his support. He would grant her the necessary authority to adopt members into her team as she saw fit. He even joked that she could include him if needed, though June found the idea a bit much, dismissing it as mere attachment. He also informed her to contact Vince for any equipment she might require, granting her the privilege of selecting resources befitting her new position as vice captain. Mayer mentioned the life and death rights, explaining that it encompassed the authority to save or decide the fate of a team member, emphasizing its importance in the unpredictable dangers of dungeons. When Mayer asked if she needed anything else, June replied that the provided rights were sufficient. Before concluding, Mayer informed her that he would assign a member to accompany her, and insisted she take the person along. June suspected this might be for surveillance, but felt unconcerned, reasoning that she had nothing to hide. Mayer reminded June of her ultimate goal, emphasizing that if she could defeat the Demon King, he would provide her with unwavering support. He encouraged her to speak freely about anything she needed, to which June confidently requested his help. She reflected on Mayer's immense support and resolved to meet his expectations, knowing she had to repay the trust he placed in her. With that, the initial direction for the Dark Knights was set. Rumors about June's actions since taking office quickly spread throughout the Dark Knights. Many reacted with skepticism, questioning how a supporting magician could nurture talent. Some doubted her standards for selection, fearing they might not be chosen, while others wondered if she had enough experience clearing dungeons or worried about the risks if she made a mistake. June, however, viewed these reactions as merely unexpected and not entirely surprising. Determined, June began searching for members worth recruiting, but to her dismay, everyone seemed to have disappeared. She reflected on the task ahead, preparing to train and nurture talents under her guidance. Yet, the challenges of her new role loomed large, and danger awaited her from the very first day. Searching every corner, wondering where everyone had gone. She scanned various spots, but no one was in sight. Frustrated, she questioned whether they were deliberately hiding to play a trick on her. Meanwhile, 4 boys were hiding nearby, whispering among themselves. One urged the others to leave quickly, fearing they'd get into trouble if they were caught. Another suggested hiding instead, and they all stayed hidden. June, deep in thought, considered her next steps. She wanted to assess and select potential recruits in person, but the gossip surrounding her lingered in her mind. She decided it was better to ignore the whispers rather than confront them directly, as they weren't serious enough to bother her. Determined, she reminded herself that while the situation was challenging, it wasn't impossible. Recalling the documents Mayer had provided, she realized she could compare them with the information displayed in her system to make informed choices. She decided to open the window and examine the data, feeling a sense of nostalgia as it reminded her of her days as a player. With renewed determination, she resolved to showcase her skills after such a long time. June was sitting alone, smiling, when a boy commented on her appearance, likening her to a ghost. He also mentioned how unsettling it felt when she decided to make everyone eat together. Axion, noticing her odd expression, approached her and asked if she was all right. June explained that she was so caught up in her work that she didn't realize how she looked. Axion remarked that it was impressive to be able to smile while training young talents. June responded that despite the many worries she had, she saw no reason to stop smiling. Later, June reflected on the power and authority she currently held. She thought about who to train first with all the support she had, but realized there wasn't any particular reason for the weight of her decisions at the moment. Axion pointed out that even with documents, it's necessary to observe someone in person to truly understand their capabilities. He noted that everyone seemed to be avoiding June. June reassured him that even if they hid, she had a way of finding out, and she wasn't worried. Axion, concerned, questioned whether June could truly see through them, suggesting that it might be too difficult for her. June reflected on how some individuals were like Shinlian in their behavior, but she remained confident that no one could escape her notice. She believed things would go as she wanted. Axion, however, shifted his concern to the future. He worried about the uncertainty and insecurity that might arise once the training began, especially if June continued to act in this way. The uncertainty of what might happen in the dungeon, acknowledging that chaos is always a possibility. She wonders if Axion's concerns about the dungeon reflected deeper worry for her. Recalling Mayer's words about accompanying her any time, she realizes that both Mayer and Axion are likely worried about her abilities. June reflects on her own experiences in the dungeon, recognizing the harsh realities where the weak often face the worst situations, especially without proper attack magic. Though she has genius skills, she lacks experience and didn't initially trust herself as the leader of the expedition. However, she reassures Axion that she isn't a complete beginner, and that she has a trick up her sleeve to handle what lies ahead. June about her last trick, curious about what it might be. June thinks to herself about the unique role of support mages who don't possess offensive, defensive, or healing powers, but have something similar, a spell called Extraordinary Devotion. This spell was used to improve Fabian's hand condition, and it targets one person, allowing the caster to transfer damage to someone else, acting as a shield for a colleague. However, it's crucial that the spell remains a secret among the members, as others would avoid the caster if they knew. June tells Axion that revealing it would no longer make it a trick, and though Axion expresses disappointment, she insists on keeping it a secret. June then reflects on how her tactic might have hit the target. Axion expresses that seeing June confident makes her feel less worried. June reassures her that the captain will send someone else, and nothing serious will happen. When asked who will be sent, June mentions that they will be informed once it's decided, and confesses that she thought it might be Axion. Axion denies it, saying that if it were her, she wouldn't have been speaking to June in this way. June agrees with her, and Axion confirms that the captain will choose someone suitable. June hopes it will be someone worthy of the role. Just then, Auguste approaches and asks June to take care of him, confirming that the captain sent him. June asks if the captain did indeed send him, to which Auguste responds affirmatively, calling her sister. June is concerned about Auguste becoming the team's main healer, wondering if it's the right decision. She reflects on Mayer's high stamina and self-healing abilities, which makes Auguste irreplaceable. June is uncertain about when she will get a chance to train the members and questions if Mayer has a way to bring her back alive from the dark dungeon. She tells Auguste to take care of her, but feels exhausted by his presence. A boy approaches from behind, urging Auguste to succeed, but when questioned, he denies having anything important to say. After Auguste joins, public opinion about June's training begins to change. June asks about the boy, but Auguste brushes it off as nothing significant. June reflects on her lack of faith in herself, but she feels things might change if Auguste joins as the main healer. With his presence, at least she won't die, and she understands that there's only one life left to protect. She acknowledges that there is no human priest capable of using resurrection magic in this world, a spell learned only by priests who reach level 99. Currently, no priest surpasses Mayer's level of 80. She recognizes that level 99 is close to the realm of gods, and Auguste, despite not having resurrection magic, is still praised for his exceptional healing abilities. June is grateful for Auguste's cooperation, but can't help but feel that he stands out too much. She has also checked parts that were not visible in the information window and reports. She notes that he is better at archery than swordsmanship and seems worthy. Thanks to Auguste, she can assess all the talents. When Auguste suggests looking around, June comments on the freshness and beauty of the tangerines. She realizes there are more hidden talents than she expected, and the list of candidates is longer. She considers checking the chosen ones first. Up until now, her progress has been satisfactory. June then asks Mary about someone's death, to which Mary confirms that the person recently died in a dungeon attack. June expresses disbelief that the child is already 17 and wonders what to do. She then reflects on the Dark Knights, noting that it is an army with many mixed orders separate from orders 1, 2, and 3, formed to expedite dungeon attacks. She acknowledges that members must possess a certain skill level to be chosen, but feels uneasy about the situation. She wonders if the young member's death was caused by weakness, as that shouldn't be the case for a Dark Knight. June asks to see the reports about the dungeon attack, and Mary agrees to bring them. Auguste comments that deaths in the dungeon are common, to which June responds that Dark Knights have significant preparation, making their death rates lower than other orders. Mary then arrives with the report. June tells Auguste that the situation is quite popular, and then takes a book from Mary, remarking that she needs to be informed if there are any updates about the unit. After Mary acknowledges, Auguste takes the book from June's hands and comments on her serious thinking, pointing out that in normal units with average death rates, their death toll is still lower than that of other units. June responds that the cause of death is more important than the number of deaths, which shocks Auguste. He eventually realizes what June is concerned about. June reflects that typically, a problem during an attack leads to quick deaths in the dungeon, but in this case, the deaths occurred one by one, particularly among newer members of the unit, that no one has noticed the oddity so far because the death rate in the unit is similar to others, and suggests they inform someone about it. June thinks to herself that she also wants to do that, but there's no proof yet. She worries that if they miss the chance now, things will only worsen. June realizes they need to catch all those involved, and reflects on Weifura, the leader of the Blue Flames, being a creator. She also notes another strange detail in the unit, but feels that telling Mayer about the situation would lead to unhelpful responses. June decides that for now, they should just keep monitoring the situation. Thinking about how everything is falling apart, she had chosen Sevilla Ventus, the youngest member of the Dark Knights, paying special attention to him because of his potential as a wind mage. She had hoped that his wind abilities, with Axion's support, would amplify his power, making him a valuable asset to the Dark Knights. However, Sevilla's absence in the first round suggests that he may have died before he could become a mage, likely due to his connection with the Blue Flames unit. June realizes she must act quickly to address the situation, but she feels uncertain about how to proceed, especially with her vice captain appointment ceremony coming up next week. Until then, the vice captain role is held by an outsider, which feels like a violation of authority. June worries about what might happen if Sevilla dies in the dungeon before she officially becomes the vice captain. June recalls Mayer's words, remembering his promise to support her if he can defeat the Demon King. She realizes that she has no other choice but to act. When June mentions Sevilla Ventus's talents, Mayer expresses indifference, questioning why he should care. June recognizes that Mayer's response stems from his lack of knowledge about Sevilla's abilities. She continues, explaining that while she doesn't think the deaths were intentional, without proof, she can't stop it. June fears that if things are left unresolved, other talented members may die. Mayer acknowledges that with so many talented people dying, something must be wrong but hesitates to act. He tells June that if it's dangerous, he disagrees with taking action, suggesting that either someone else should go or they should give up entirely. June thinks to herself, feeling conflicted about the situation. Despite becoming vice captain, she feels that forcing a 14-year-old child like Sevilla to risk his life in the dungeon is too cruel. She realizes that pushing Sevilla out might result in her getting scolded, but it's the only way to gather proof that the Blue Flames can't repeat their actions. Jun stresses that she won't go to the dungeon unless proper countermeasures are in place, as she values her life. Mayer then hints that he has a condition for her plan, leaving Jun to wonder what it could be. The concepts of a base and a territory are interconnected yet distinct. Territorial rights refer to ownership over land and its people, while a base grants rights over dungeons within its vicinity. All dungeons near a base are managed by that base's expedition group. However, since the number of dungeons is limited and many expedition groups exist, competition arises. When a dungeon appears, groups must pay a commission to the base, leading some groups to prioritize securing rights over managing dungeons. These dynamics don't concern the Order of Dark Knights, as they have a large base in the Noctentoria territory. Unlike others, they don't charge commissions and are always engaged in battles due to their influence. Currently, the Blue Flames army has been assigned for the next fight, which was expected to happen soon. June reflects on how her concerns have become reality, but is determined to resolve the situation after handling matters with Mayer. She now feels ready to proceed on her terms. Weifura sarcastically remarks that June, as the future vice captain, seems skilled in stealing people but didn't expect her to join another army. June observes that Wifera, the captain of the Blue Flames and an original member of the Order of Knights, has a strong reputation, yet his current demeanor contradicts it, revealing a hidden side of him. June assures Wifera she won't interfere and is merely seeking experience before officially becoming vice captain. Wifera dismisses her efforts as arrogant, implying that gaining experience from a dungeon or two is naive. June counters with a calm response, hinting at her confidence in controlling the situation. Wifera then questions why she chose his army, expressing concerns about the lack of resources to accommodate a support mage like her. Target by the Blue Flames is of medium to low difficulty, making it suitable for her plans. Although she feels confident in her ability to survive alone, she senses underlying hostility and unease about her presence. She tries to reassure Wifera, pointing out the dungeon's manageable difficulty and acknowledging his long-standing experience as captain, suggesting he is competent despite his modesty. However, Wifera firmly states that their unit lacks the resources to handle her. He reminds June that her first dungeon fight was with Axion, a powerful fire mage, whose abilities made the battle significantly safer. Without such power in their team, protecting her while breaking through the dungeon would be nearly impossible, even with a skilled healer present. Wifera warns June that she could genuinely face death and questions if she's prepared for that. June realizes that Wifera's questioning is his way of absolving himself of any responsibility if she dies, essentially shifting the blame onto her capabilities. Accepting this unspoken challenge, June confidently responds that she can protect herself, and if she fails, it's simply due to her own inadequacies. Wifera asks her to confirm her statement and demands that she pledge obedience to his orders as the captain in the dungeon. June agrees without hesitation, even offering to write her assurance. Satisfied, Wifera instructs her to meet at the main entrance the next morning. As June observes Wifera's behavior, she notes the darkness within him but sees it as an advantage. His scheming will ultimately force her to reveal her strength and uncover his hidden motives. The next morning, Wifera sarcastically introduces June and Sevi to the team. He refers to June as the precious support mage and soon-to-be vice captain, mocking her reputation. June immediately recognizes his irony, noting how transparent his behavior is. Wifera then introduces Sevi Ventus, a young archer replacing Jaeger, who died in the previous dungeon. Sevi politely asks the team to take care of him, but June finds Wifera's tone cold and detached. When Wifera questions if June is bothered by his informal way of addressing her, she reassures him, saying she's unbothered and understands that clear hierarchies are necessary to ensure safety in dungeons. Wifera acknowledges June's understanding of the situation, but June remains suspicious of everyone, sensing ulterior motives. She worries about her own performance as the group, including Wifera, Sevi, and the Knights, enters the dungeon with weapons ready. Inside, a man comments that this time seems better, and Wifera agrees, reflecting on the previous mission's poor outcome. June observes that the attacks are stronger than she anticipated, and that the team seems to work well together, at least on the surface. However, she doubts their ability to manage without her support. Internally, she resolves to stay under the radar and avoid drawing attention to herself. When Wifera yells at her, calling her a fool and ordering her to step back, he criticizes her as a hindrance rather than a help. Mocking her position as vice captain, he questions how she earned the role, implying everyone has lost their senses. June reflects on the situation, feeling conflicted about how her true thoughts might be perceived by the group. She considers that if their behavior mirrors that of thugs, it's easier for her to expect betrayal and adapt accordingly. Despite being wary of Mayer's special interest in her, she cannot openly confront the situation. Instead, she accepts the increasing hostility as confirmation of their intent to eliminate her during this mission. As she observes the dynamics, June notices the tension growing. A beast suddenly approaches from behind Sevi, and June realizes that Sevi's fear might escalate to the point where he recklessly lashes out at Wifera. Inwardly, she hopes for an opportunity to let things unfold and see if Wifera's control falters. June intervenes, trying to defuse the situation by telling Sevi to stay calm, but Wifera aggressively pushes for faster action, yelling at her for not moving quickly enough. June finds herself suddenly kicked by Wifera, who accuses her of laziness causing problems. Furious but suppressing her emotions, June thinks to herself that Wifera's actions are excessive but holds back from reacting, as she feels there isn't enough evidence yet to confront the group. Meanwhile, Sevi becomes visibly angry, prompting June to worry that his outburst might ruin her carefully laid plans. To diffuse the tension, she grabs his hand and tries to thank him, but Sevi unexpectedly pulls her down to the floor in frustration. Wefera mocks June, questioning her weakness for falling so easily, while Sevi seems on the verge of losing his temper. Internally, June panics and reminds herself that Sevi absolutely cannot afford to lose control in this situation. Fortunately, no one notices Sevi's anger, and Wefera impatiently commands the group to move forward. June picks herself up and sarcastically mutters about feeling like the village drum, a metaphor for being someone everyone mistreats and blames. Wefera declares that the battle is nearing its end, and it's time for June, as the reserve vice captain, to take action. Mockingly, he points out that she's been staying at the back and now needs to contribute. When June questions him, he cryptically replies that she'll understand once she experiences it directly, summoning a spell called Blade of Vengeance. June uses her own magic while analyzing the situation. She realizes that Blade of Vengeance is a skill that increases the group's attack power proportionally to the damage taken by its members. Since she is also part of the group, it becomes clear to her that she's being used as a scapegoat to absorb damage and boost the army's strength. As Wefera reveals himself to be a supporting magician, he taunts June, enjoying her surprise at his manipulation. Wefera was a supporting magician. Her ability to view the party member window made this fact clear, even if it wasn't officially stated. However, she chose not to reveal this to the Dark Knights because Wefera had likely used his role to betray his comrades in a similar manner before. She notes how Wefera's gray hair makes it easy for him to hide his identity, as he could simply claim it turned gray prematurely. June then confronts Wefera, sarcastically stating that it's less surprising to learn he's a supporting magician than to see him as someone who turns his allies into scapegoats for personal gain. She accuses him of using magic not for support, but for revenge against his own team, adding that even Saint Marian would be shocked by his behavior. Wefera defends his actions by claiming they are not driven by malice, but by the practical application of magic, as it is an applied discipline. Addressing June as the reserve vice captain, he places his sword on her neck and asks if she understands the gravity of her situation. June, analyzing the situation, realizes that Wefera's skill increases damage by sacrificing a specific target. She reflects on the expressions she had shown throughout their time in the dungeon, and concludes that she now clearly understands Wefera's intentions. Her suspicion intensifies, as she wonders aloud, could it be? Is he going to kill? Wefera tries to justify his actions, saying that the situation isn't exactly about killing but more about sacrificing June for the benefit of her colleagues. He claims that her sacrifice will allow him to kill the boss and close the dungeon. June challenges his reasoning, asking why he insists on carrying the burden of killing his own comrades when the Blue Flame Army could handle the task. Wefera dismisses the idea, stating that involving others would mean sharing the experience points from defeating the boss. June reflects inwardly, understanding Wefera's true intentions. In the great war between the god and the demon, experience points are distributed based on contribution. If Wefera defeats the demon boss alone, he can monopolize all the experience points. By doubling his power through the sacrificial skill, Wefera ensures he has the strength to claim all the rewards for himself. June confronts Wefera, accusing him of being willing to kill her just to monopolize the boss's experience points. Wefera responds smugly, explaining that his actions are part of a greater purpose. By sacrificing someone as useless as June, he plans to grow stronger, defeat the Demon King, and bring peace to the world. June, however, sees through his justification and reflects inwardly. She realizes that Wefera uses flowery words to mask his cruelty, likely having killed countless others under the guise of a noble cause. She questions why the Special Forces soldiers are cooperating with Wefera's twisted reasoning. Then it dawns on her. If she dies, the dungeon will reward them for completing it, as her death would effectively remove the owner. The reward includes experience points for Wefera and monetary benefits for the Special Forces soldiers. Explains the unusual cooperation between Wefera and the soldiers, all driven by selfish motives disguised as a greater good. Wefera grabs June by the chin and tells her that he doesn't hate her but instead sympathizes with her. He acknowledges that they are both support magicians and expresses his frustration with how useless their abilities seem. He recalls feeling inferior to the one-stone unit's Special Forces soldiers and the momentary happiness he experienced upon discovering his magic. However, that happiness turned to despair when he realized his magic was only for support. Wefera then claims he came to understand that everything, including his magic, is part of God's will. June silently agrees with this belief and resolves not to hide her methods, seeing her potential to become a powerful fire magician as an embodiment of Saint Marianne's will. With a smile, Wefera states that his contribution at least helps him level up, In his mind, he believes that God has chosen him to be a hero, justifying his actions through his delusions of divine destiny. Wifura mocks Jun, questioning her worth as a supporting magician, and claiming her inability to accomplish anything significant. He remarks that she only became vice captain by not hiding her decisive methods. Jun reflects on the limitations of support magicians. They cannot learn attribute magic, attack magic, defense magic, or even healing magic. Instead, their abilities are restricted to non-combative skills, making them versatile but incapable of directly contributing to dungeon attacks. She considers support magicians akin to multi-genre gamers skilled in variety, but unable to close dungeons on their own. Jun acknowledges that failing to close the dungeon could lead to the world's destruction, and a magician without offensive or defensive capabilities holds little value. Even Wifura, a magician himself, relies on magic to attack, making it clear why he was disappointed when he realized his magic was only for support. However, Jun believes Wifura's justification for killing people stems solely from his desire to rationalize his actions. She blames him for dragging down the already low societal perception of support magicians to an even worse level. Wifura denies Jun's accusations, warning her not to use him as an excuse. Jun asserts that she is different from him, a talent personally invited by the commander. Wifura sarcastically dismisses her claim, taunting her with his condescending attitude and likening her to a weak dog trying to bite. Jun internally confirms that her claim of being invited as a talent is indeed true, but Wifura continues. He attempts to establish a sense of camaraderie by pointing out that both are supporting magicians. Offering Jun a choice, he pulls Sevi closer, forcing her into a dilemma: either join his side to survive by sacrificing a special forces soldier, or refuse and face death herself. Jun realizes the gravity of the situation. If she chooses to side with Wifura, he will exploit her position as deputy commander to further his own power. If she refuses, he might still kill both her and Sevi, leaving her with no safe option. Jun questions Wifura, asking why he trusts her and wants her to join his side, pointing out that she could expose his crimes. Wifura laughs, dismissing her concerns, stating that no one would believe her accusations. He mocks her, implying that as an outsider she has no credibility, while those like him who have worked hard in the dark nights are considered more trustworthy. He sarcastically suggests that cleansing their sins could even be her responsibility. Wifura advises her to think carefully, claiming it wouldn't be the wrong choice to side with him. He then points out that her position as a vice commander is precarious, hinting at the unflattering opinions others hold about her in the nights. He warns that as an unpopular supporting magician, her time in her current role might be limited. Finally, Wifura tries to tempt her by suggesting that if the Blue Fire Army supported her, she could solidify her position and gain power. Jun confidently asserts that supporting magic is far more useful than Wifura thinks. Wifura laughs mockingly, questioning how trash can be considered useful. Jun retorts sharply, pointing out that Wifura, who earns profits through supporting magic, has no right to belittle it. Surprised by her words, Wifura hesitates for a moment, but Jun continues, criticizing his misuse of supporting magic. She boldly declares that Wifura's approach is flawed and advises him never to call himself a supporting magician, as she feels ashamed to share the same title with him. Infuriated, Wifura accuses Jun of wanting to die. He pushes her to the floor and, filled with rage, declares that she won't die alone. He'll bury her alongside the archer. Wifura's men warn him that the commander won't overlook this. Wifura dismisses their concern, saying everything will be fine as long as the dungeon door is closed. Brandishing a knife, he declares that he'll report Jun's death as caused by a monster. Jun, shocked, thinks about the situation, realizing there's no way out. Suddenly, Sevi intervenes, blocking the knife. His bold action surprises everyone, with one of Wifura's men exclaiming in disbelief. Wifura, furious, questions Sevi's audacity. Sevi firmly addresses Jun, telling her to keep observing and emphasizing that she doesn't need to be stabbed to act. Jun is taken aback, questioning his plan, but Sevi reassures her, saying it's just in her mind. At that moment, Mayor unexpectedly appears, and Jun, seeing him, addresses him as the commander. A few days earlier in Mayor's office, Jun reacts in surprise when Mayor suggests accompanying her on a dangerous mission. Mayor explains that August, being a priest, has limitations when dealing with humans, so it might be better if they go together. Jun thinks to herself that Mayor is already busy with closing the dungeon and wonders why he would make such a suggestion. She feels uncertain about who is supporting whom at this point. However, seeing Mayor's unwavering determination, she reluctantly agrees, reasoning that having him as her escort would at least ensure her safety. Back in the present, Mayer suddenly reveals himself, stunning everyone. One of Wifera's men questions what just happened. June reflects on the disbelief around her and recalls that before coming here, Mayer had used transformation magic to disguise himself as Sevi. She notes that this type of magic requires the consent of the original person, which Mayer readily gave. Mayer, having some knowledge of bows and arrows, weren't false, as he infiltrated the army with ease. However, his lack of acting skills made his performance somewhat unconvincing. Fortunately, because Sevi was a rookie and relatively unknown within the unit, the plan worked smoothly. Acting requires attention to how others perceive you, but Mayer didn't struggle much in this regard. Moreover, transformation magic is rarely used, and even among support magicians, those who know how to use it are extremely rare. This made Mayer's disguise even more effective. June reflects that the success of this plan was largely due to her being the body Mayer borrowed for his transformation, as she is a professional support magician. Ironically, this same tactic also became the reason for Wifera's defeat. He states that the knowledge he has is enough to interrogate Wifera and his men. Meanwhile, Wifera looks at his hand in disbelief, realizing Mayer has been physically close to him all along, which June finds unsettling. She reflects on how she needs to stop disobeying Mayer in the future. Mayer demands an explanation from Wifera, but Wifera, frustrated, devises a desperate plan. He orders his men to capture and kill June, intending to increase his attack power by doing so and challenge Mayer. June is shocked, realizing Wifera's absurd plan to boost his power by killing her. However, she knows that even with doubled attack power, Wifera stands no chance against Mayer, who is at level 80 and far stronger. Mayer scoffs at Wifera's ignorance, remarking on how pitiful it is that he doesn't understand the strength of his superiors. Wifera panics and shouts that everyone will die if things continue as they are. He insists that Mayer Knox is just human, and commands his men to kill June first, dismissing her as just a supporting magician, confident he can handle her. June observes Wifera's desperation, likening it to a final, burning struggle for happiness. She picks up a knife and steps in front of Mayer. Mayer, calm but curious, asks June what should be done with Wifera. Wifera, shocked, accuses June of betrayal, shouting that she dared to bring Mayer Knox while pretending to be innocent. He vows to kill June, even if it costs him his life. June laughs and taunts Wifera, questioning his ability to kill her. She decides to crush any hope he has of defeating her. To prove her resolve, she stabs herself in the hand, leaving everyone stunned. Mayer rushes to June, demanding to know what she is doing. June calmly replies that she is awake. Mayer examines her hand and notices something strange about the wound, realizing there's more going on than meets the eye. Blood begins to flow from Wifera's hand, leaving him shocked and confused. He shouts in disbelief, demanding to know why this is happening. June smirks and explains that Wifera isn't the only one with unique abilities. She reveals that when she felt something was wrong, she cast Sacred Sacrifice in advance. The magic she activated first took precedence. She elaborates that Wifera's Sword of Revenge, which increases his attack power at the cost of damaging her, is countered by her Sacred Sacrifice, which nullifies any damage she would take and negates the effect of his attack power boost. Realizing he's been outsmarted, Wifera furiously yells her name, accusing her of betrayal. June calmly responds, praising his quick thinking as a supporting magician, but remarks that his approach was flawed. Instead of abusing magic, proper application is the key, a lesson he failed to grasp, despite claiming it himself. Mayer, watching the scene unfold, expresses concern and frustration. He scolds June, warning her never to resort to self-harm like this again. She had no habit of hurting herself, and asked Mayer not to worry too much. Mayer echoed her statement with skepticism, expressing his doubts and mentioning that he might need to reassess his opinion of her. June questioned what kind of adjustments he was considering, to which Mayer sarcastically pointed out if her best decision was to use a knife to harm herself. June thought to herself that Mayer seemed to have run out of arguments. His supposedly rational insistence appeared weak, and her actions had an element of revenge against Wifera, who had failed in his duties and undermined her as a supporting magician. She reflected on her resentment towards Wifera for belittling their role and contemplated ways to drive him into despair. Mayer, observing her resolve, expressed disbelief at her actions. Wifera's subordinates pleaded for mercy, arguing that they were only guilty of following their unit commander's orders, which were deemed absolute in the dungeon. Wifera, acknowledging the situation, encouraged his men to ensure their survival. Mayer, observing their defense, stated that while a commander's orders were to be followed in expeditions, the ease with which they accepted orders to take a life was appalling. He reminded them that his own order to make them pay for their sins should not be ignored. Drawing his sword, Mayer emphasized that there was no greater absurdity than justifying such blind obedience. He then turned to June, allowing her to decide their fate, offering the choice between punishment within the dungeon or interrogation outside. June considered the situation carefully. She suggested that this was an opportunity to expose their crimes and reinforce discipline within the Knights. However, she also noted that such actions could lead to distrust within the Dark Knights. Ultimately, she recommended presenting them to Buddha's door. Pleaded desperately, mentioning the presence of a demon king and asking for another chance. June seemed puzzled by the mention of the demon king, while Mayer dismissed their behavior, pointing out their lack of objectivity within the dungeon and expedition teams. He remarked that it was embarrassing for June to witness such incompetence. June reassured Mayer that she wouldn't adjust her judgment based on such trivial matters, to which Mayer sarcastically expressed his gratitude. He then instructed everyone to follow the vice-captain's decision. Waifura, meanwhile, delusionally claimed to be chosen by God. June offered to use her magic to assist Mayer, but he stated that it wasn't necessary. However, if she wanted to contribute to the mission, she was free to use her magic. June reflected on the game-like system of the world, where even a single skill could contribute to her level. For someone like her, newly entering round 2 and still at a low level, this was a rare opportunity. Seizing the chance, June used her skill, strong muscular strength. Mayer reacted to her action with mild surprise, and June thought back to the magic Mayer had given her earlier, comparing it to her current ability. Mayer explained that supporting magic could be quantified through the ability enhancement metric and asked June how much his attack power had increased. June replied that it had risen by 10%, a typical boost for normal attack magic. June reflected on how healing magic in the Holy Spirit had absolute value, while support magic operated on relative value. She noted that the higher the target's level, the greater the enhancement range. With her high level of proficiency, she could even apply the magic consecutively up to 3 times, a feat she had struggled to achieve in her first attempt during the previous round. June asked Mayer if he wanted her to cast the spell consecutively, but Mayer said it didn't seem necessary, as the effect had already been applied. He mentioned that Waifura had claimed it was possible to double the original ability. June explained that while doubling the effect was achievable, there were many limitations involved. She added that abilities like the Blade of Revenge were indeed powerful, but were restricted to affecting only the user. Mayer acknowledged that Waifura's actions made sense when considering the allure of power. June agreed, noting that once strength was enhanced, it felt like real power, and its addictive nature was stronger than drugs, making it difficult to let go. However, she emphasized that such actions couldn't be justified, stating that sins must be repaid. June observed Mayer's words, feeling as though he was talking to himself. She reflected on his unmatched abilities as he entered the battlefield, faced the Demon King alone, and defeated him in a single strike. The support magic she had cast still lingered, amplifying the awe of Mayer's strength. His incredible power made her momentarily wonder if he had forged a contract with the devil. Ghost arrived and reported to Mayer. Mayer inquired if anything unusual had occurred, to which Auguste replied that only 2 individuals had appeared, as expected. He then mentioned that Saint Marianne had misused compassion in a negative manner, causing such immense pain that he was rendered speechless. June reflected on the situation, feeling disappointed that the abuse of power was even worse than death. She thought about how the religion in this world differed from her original one. While magical abilities were seen as blessings from the gods, even priests seemed indifferent to the sanctity of life, behaving as though it wasn't their concern. Mayer concluded that the situation had been resolved and asked Priest Auguste to assist in treating the vice-captain, who had been kicked and stabbed. June insisted that she wasn't hurt, but Mayer dismissed her words, instructing Auguste to proceed regardless. Auguste asked June where she was injured, showing concern. Mayer sternly reminded her that she had to take care of herself, emphasizing that her body was no longer just her own but also tied to their mission. He warned her against acting recklessly, as such behavior left him unsure of how to handle the situation. June, thinking to herself, felt that having a priest treat someone who wasn't gravely injured seemed like a waste. Mayer continued, stressing that she needed to be more responsible, as her role carried immense significance. June realized that Mayer's fussing was due to genuine concern for her, and the expectations tied to her talents. Interrupting her thoughts, Mayer demanded her attention and warned that they needed to have a serious conversation upon their return. June half-heartedly agreed, brushing off his reprimand. Meanwhile, Auguste began using his powers to heal Jun's wounds. Jun internally reflected on the events ahead, thinking about the upcoming secret meeting in the province of Noctentoria following their successful dungeon attack led by the Blue Flame forces. Mayor explained that the current situation involving Wifera and the Blue Flame forces stemmed from her jealousy of her capable juniors. Axion agreed, stating it wasn't far from the truth. Mayor revealed that Wifera was known as a support witch, and he expressed concern that such recognition might perpetuate a harmful stereotype about support magic, which could negatively impact witches like Jun. Axion remarked on the unusual rapid improvement in Wifera's abilities, and questioned why Saint Marianne granted such power to someone like her. Auguste replied that Saint Marianne had her own reasoning. He speculated that if gods distributed mana purely based on humanity, individuals like the Axion brothers might not have achieved their current magical prowess. Axion, slightly taken aback, defended the idea that great talent naturally aligned with great personality. Meanwhile, Lober, a key figure in the dark forces, the knights suggested settling disputes through a fistfight to test their faith. Axion, irritated, questioned if they expected him to fight a zombie. Auguste reminded everyone that Saint Marianne forbade unnecessary violence and emphasized that even strong magical power had its limits, urging gratitude for what had been given. Axion sarcastically remarked that if talent recruitment were based solely on honesty, only a priest would remain in the party. Jun mentioned old healer Pat as someone worth considering, hinting at potential. Mayor then turned to Jun, seeking confirmation of her opinion. Auguste added that from a proportional perspective, the 7-year-old priest, Auguste, was undoubtedly a worthy contender. Axion questioned how there could be more priests like Auguste. Jun responded that there might be at least one, though she would need to think more about it. Lober challenged her, suggesting she spoke as if she could create another Auguste. Jun confidently replied that it wasn't impossible, and promised to share more details later. She then concluded the meeting, telling everyone to rest. As everyone started to leave, Mayor called out to Jun, asking if she didn't have any special plans. He invited her to have a drink in his office to celebrate the job, hinting at a private meeting. Jun, surprised by the late hour and the prospect of drinking alone with Mayor, thought about it, wondering if she could control herself with just one drink. She finally remarked that she really enjoyed drinking, so it might be hard to stop at just if a boss asked to have a drink late at night. But with Mayor, it was different. Mayor was well known for having no interest in affairs of the heart, and many women had tried, but none had succeeded in tempting him. This only made the rumors about her being his lover seem more unfair. The only potential issues she saw were the rumors getting worse or her getting too drunk and accidentally revealing something. However, she reassured herself that she was a good drinker and her body handled alcohol well. She didn't need to worry about how much she drank. Plus, with Mayor, she expected him to have high-quality, expensive drinks, and she wasn't foolish enough to pass up an opportunity like this. Mayor then commented that she must really like drinking, and invited her to his office. Both of them were in the office, drinking. Mayor mentioned that during the first playthrough, he had no idea about Wifera. He had seemed to really care about his fellow soldiers, yet he had this side to him all along. Jun responded, wondering how Mayor could have known. She thought to herself that Mayor might be drunk. His face looked normal, but his voice sounded more relaxed than usual. As she drank, she reflected on why Mayor had invited her for a drink. She realized he likely wanted to loosen up and share his thoughts with her, probably because he couldn't discuss the first playthrough with anyone else. Jun had thought that Mayor wasn't too bothered by the ordeal with Wifera, as he didn't hesitate to punish him and his unit. But now, she realized that Mayor had been dwelling on it more than she had assumed. Jun had always seen him as a cold, efficient person, but now she was surprised to see a softer side to him. Part of her felt sympathy for him and wanted to comfort him, but thinking it was strange to worry about him, especially since, if he so much as grabbed her throat, her life would end instantly. It felt like a mouse worrying about a lion. Jun told Mayor not to worry about it, but Mayor insisted, asking how he could not worry. Jun, thinking about his intense gaze, realized he was demanding an answer from her. She responded that dungeons were too cruel for ordinary people to survive, and while she didn't know what Wifera had been like before, it wasn't surprising that he lost control. She reflected on how spending enough time in a dungeon made it easy to become desensitized to human life. Losing friends and comrades in an instant made the shock of death wear off quickly. Jun admitted that she treated the world like a game when entering dungeons, but she suspected it was just a defense mechanism to help her survive. However, not everyone crossed the line like Wifera, as the devil tempted everyone but not all took the bait. Despite this, June acknowledged that just because it was not unusual didn't mean it was right. She reminded Mayer that Wefera's actions were unforgivable and that not everyone used other sacrifices to get ahead. She believed Wefera made that choice because he was weak and lacked conviction. June urged Mayer not to worry about such people and hoped he would forget about it. She further stated that once their work was done and Wefera became emperor, he could look after the weak, but right now he needed to focus on becoming stronger than anyone else. Mayer asked June what she would do if he wasn't as strong as she thought and couldn't meet her expectations, suggesting that she might be disappointed and might even return to Fabian. June, surprised, realized what he was doing. He was trying to figure out if she still had any attachment to Fabian, which she thought was a sly move on his part. While they had grown close in a business sense, they weren't so close that they would reveal their weaknesses to each other. At first, June had thought it was just a casual drink, but now she realized that Mayer might have set up this situation to test her. He probably hoped that as she drank, she would reveal more of herself, helping him determine if she might betray him. June understood why Mayer was trying to gauge her. After all, she had been betrayed but was once loyal to Fabian. Since Mayer secretly carried the weight of being the Demon King's core, he had to be careful when choosing those around him. He knew she was useful, but what she truly needed from him was his trust to plan her strategy. June responded candidly, admitting that she was a terrible liar and that everything was written on her face so she would be frank. She asked Mayer if he was serious, questioning whether he thought she would be disappointed or run back to Fabian. She then asked if he saw her as a deserter since she had switched core once. Mayer denied ever thinking that. June, frustrated, asked why he would say something like that, pointing out that it was likely because she had once been labeled as Fabian's dog, but she hated that term. She clarified that she had always been trying her hardest for the core and didn't understand why others viewed her that way. Mayer apologized for saying that when they first met, and June, with her usual generosity, accepted his apology. As she reflected on the situation, she thought that getting angry often worked well in situations like this. June asked Mayer why he was suddenly bringing up such topics and questioned if he had been secretly sacrificing his soldiers. Mayer quickly denied this. June reassured him that it was fine, mentioning that although he had suggested she join the Knights, it was ultimately her decision to accept his offer. She then stated that they were now in the same situation, with the shared goal of defeating the Demon Lord. She added that even if Mayer wasn't as strong as she thought, she wouldn't betray him, but instead, she would make him stronger. Mayer was surprised and asked if she really thought she could make him stronger. June, thinking to herself, realized that it might sound absurd for her level 23 self to improve his level 80 self. However, she confidently responded, insisting that she could. She knew she had the ability to see all of his stats and even his inner struggles. June understood that Mayer was a ticking time bomb who would eventually become the Demon Lord, but she was already prepared for the worst. June told Mayer that as a member of the Dark Knights, she would always do her best to support him in every way possible. She even jokingly added that if he ever decided not to fight the Demon Lord, she would give him a kick in the pants and send him to the castle. She reminded him that he had promised to put her name in the history books, and Mayer acknowledged that he had made that promise. June thought to herself that this reassurance should be enough. She couldn't believe Mayer had gotten her drunk just to figure out her thoughts. She also wondered why he was still holding her hand. She swore to herself that she wouldn't drink with him again after this, but then, considering the wine and the view, she reluctantly thought that she might drink with him one more time. Mayer complimented June, telling her that she was very strong and hadn't changed. June, surprised, responded by pointing out that it seemed as though he knew her from the last playthrough. Mayer explained that he knew her and had chosen her ahead of time, which left June even more surprised. He further clarified that was why he had suddenly gone to find her. June, deep in thought, wondered when he had seen her in the first playthrough. She quickly realized that he must remember when she had tried to kill him. She vaguely recalled overhearing a meeting of Fabian's core at some point, but couldn't remember which performance report it had been. To the Ratio dungeon, emphasizing that they could choose any dungeon and there was no need to overthink it. However, Decca pointed out that Ratio Dungeon was a water attribute dungeon, which would be disadvantageous for Fabian, as it went against his attribute. June tried to reassure Decca, explaining that once she reached level 60, things would be different. Decca quickly realized that June was only focused on increasing her own level, and criticized her for prioritizing that over the safety of their comrades. June denied it, claiming that reaching level 60 would grant her a new skill, but Decca wasn't convinced. He argued that gaining more levels wouldn't change much, as Jun's new skill would still just be support magic, which wasn't useful for defeating monsters. Decca reminded June that the core was already strong enough without her needing to level up further. Reason for suggesting the ratio dungeon, Deka replied, blaming April for always taking June's side, which had led June to become stubborn. April defended June, pointing out that following her suggestions had only led to good outcomes. Deka disagreed, saying their success was due to their own abilities and luck, but it had never been easy. June then pleaded with Fabian to listen to her and choose the ratio dungeon. However, Fabian insisted they go to the Aquilo dungeon, calling June's suggestion reckless. As Fabian and Deka walked away, April yelled at them for being mean. Deka responded, saying they were simply making rational decisions for the good of their army, and questioned why April was suddenly supporting June Mayer, then informed June about what had happened. Mayer remarked that it seemed like June was deciding between two dungeons and had been insistent on raiding a particular one. Despite the others mocking her support magic, June had stood firm in her belief, which had left an impression on him. He clarified that he wasn't spying on her, but she had spoken very loudly. June reflected on this, remembering that Fabian's core always did well, and she typically stayed back, especially when they were going to a special dungeon. However, as a support mage who couldn't fight, they had treated her poorly, like a dog. She then pointed out that despite everything, they never actually listened to her. Mayer mentioned that they were now in the second playthrough, and back then he had hoped to work with June, though he hadn't expected it to actually happen. June reflected on how the core that ended up raiding the dungeon she wanted was the Dark Knights. She recalled that in the Ratio dungeon, there was an artifact that increased fire resistance. If the Dark Knights had taken it, they must have used it to protect their members, while Axion used his flame magic. June speculated that this might have been the moment when Mayer realized her worth. Mayer expressed his happiness that June became his vice captain with all her memories intact. June, recalling the previous night, wondered if that was the reason Mayer had gotten her drunk and questioned her. She humorously pointed out that when he promised to treat her like a vice captain, she didn't expect it to include a drunken interrogation. Mayer laughed it off, and June told him not to try to figure her out like that again. Mayer agreed and assured her that he now fully trusted her. June, thinking he was lying because he still hadn't revealed that he's the Demon Lord's core, felt that as time passed he might eventually reveal his secret. As she stood up to leave, she thought about how he offered to walk her out, but she doubted he could manage it, worrying he might fall on top of her and squish her. June offered to help Mayer to his bed, suggesting he needed rest, but Mayer insisted on walking her to the door. June, frustrated by his stubbornness, thanked him for the wine as he accompanied her. Mayer admitted that she had outdrunk him, and June responded that he got what he deserved. As they stood near each other, June felt awkward due to the closeness and realized how tall he was. She considered having another drink but was distracted when she noticed his messy hair. Unexpectedly, Mayer grabbed her hand, surprising June. She wondered what he was doing, as she had only reached out toward his head. Mayer apologized, explaining that he had been overly sensitive, and June reassured him that it was fine, as she hadn't needed to do that. June thought to herself that she must have crossed some line. If a superior had tried to touch her, she would have been shocked, and she assumed that Mayer, as a subordinate, must have been surprised as well. She figured he must have been drunk. As she left, she wished him a good night, to which he replied, in kind. Walking toward her room, she felt as if Mayer was staring at her. She wondered what kind of expression he had, but not wanting to look back, she continued walking without turning around. The next day, news of the Blue Flames unit's actions spread quickly among the Dark Knights, leaving everyone shocked. One soldier expressed disbelief over Wepera's betrayal, feeling betrayed by someone they had trusted as a comrade. Another speculated that this might explain why Mayer seemed to be in such a foul mood, with one of them remarking that they had never seen him so furious. They wondered if there was more to the situation and decided they needed to watch him closely. Meanwhile, June, overhearing their conversation, thought to herself that Mayer wasn't angry but simply hungover from the previous night. Recalling how badly he had been staggering, she dismissed the idea of his foul mood as anything serious. Soon after, Axion approached June, mentioning that he had heard she had a drink with Mayer after the meeting. June confirmed it casually, but Axion found it impressive, pointing out that Mayer never drank alone with anyone. He emphasized that sharing a drink in a private setting was entirely different from drinking during a banquet, suggesting that June had earned Mayer's trust. June realized that Mayer's excessive drinking the previous night was likely due to his comfort in her presence. Axion then teased her about returning to her duties so casually after such an encounter, implying she must have seen far worse in her life to be so unfazed. Internally, June admitted that his observation was quite accurate. However, when Axion suggested joining her special unit, June refused, even though she acknowledged that Father August would be part of it. Jun thought about the purpose of the special unit she was forming: to nurture talented individuals and help soldiers grow effectively within the Corps. While rumors about the unit had already spread, she hadn't expected Axion to show such interest. She concluded that his enthusiasm likely stemmed from his desire to become stronger. June explained to Axion that Father August's inclusion in her special unit was the captain's decision, and Axion himself was too strong to join. Axion insisted he could control himself and balance multiple responsibilities, but June firmly declined, emphasizing that others needed the training more than he did. Axion, slightly frustrated, joked that he had hoped to convince her while she was hungover. He then pointed out that while Mayer was suffering from a terrible headache, June seemed unaffected, which made him suspect she drank often. June dismissed this, stating she simply knew her limits. At that moment, Rober joined the conversation, overhearing their talk about drinking. She teased June about being able to handle her liquor and suggested they share a drink later to honor their friendship. June felt a sense of relief, as she had wanted to connect with Rober during the meeting, but hadn't gotten the chance. The Oak Tree tribe and her expertise in defensive techniques, June thought that building a strong relationship with her could prove very useful in the future. Axion jokingly warned Rober about June's drinking skills, exaggerating that she could practically breathe alcohol. Rober laughed heartily, declaring that such resilience was typical of the great warriors of Ragatan. June realized that Rober was likely just looking for a drinking buddy, as she probably didn't know many people who could match her pace. Rober expressed her love for drinking and took a jab at a red-headed snob who in her opinion was too uptight. June, eager to join in, offered to start drinking right away, which delighted Rober. Despite Axion's protests that June had already drunk with Mayer the previous night, she dismissed his concerns, pointing out that it was a new day. Rober and June left together, planning for a girls-only drinking session. Axion, flustered, tried to join them but was stopped by Father Auguste, who confronted the group. Rober invited Auguste to join, but he sternly refused, stating that his duty was to nurture the gifts bestowed upon him by God, and that indulging in alcohol was a sinful vice. Rober dismissed him as being no fun and decided to wrap up the conversation, suggesting they clean up before moving on. As Axion sat groaning about the spinning room, Father Auguste advised him not to let Sister Rober's influence sway him, reminding him of his responsibilities as vice-captain. June, surprised by the acknowledgement of her title, pointed out that it was the first time Auguste had addressed her as such. Auguste admitted that after seeing her abilities, he had no reason not to recognize her position, though he clarified that it was not his place to decide whether she was accepted or not. June felt a mix of reassurance and curiosity, wondering if Auguste had finally warmed up to her. Auguste went on to express his belief that the knight's opinion of June would change over time due to her humble dedication to training the blessings given to her by Saint Marianne. June reciprocated with a prayer for Saint Marianne's blessings upon him, realizing that his distant behavior stemmed from his concern about her potentially being unhappy with her blessing, or overly prideful. June reflected on how deeply religious Auguste was, and found it surprising that he got along well with Mayer, who didn't seem particularly devout. She wondered what part of Mayer's personality drew Auguste to him, and decided to ask about it later. Mary informed June that her welcoming ceremony was about to begin, and Mayer had requested her presence at the training grounds. June acknowledged the call and reflected on the significance of the day as it marked the start of her official role as vice-captain. The ceremony began with a resounding declaration of the Dark Knight's glory, honoring their role as heirs of heroes and protectors of warriors. Mayer then called June forward, and she greeted the knights for the first time in her new position. Observing their reactions, June noted the uncertainty in their expressions. She recognized that the knights were still influenced by prejudices, viewing her as Mayer's rumored secret lover, and dismissing her abilities as a support-type mage. Determined to change their attitudes, she resolved to overcome these rumors and earn their trust, acknowledging their confusion and the rumors that had spread following her sudden appointment to the newly created position of vice-captain. Observing the nervous expressions of a few individuals, she assured them that she would not hold past words against them, as she was not one to dwell on the past. However, June made it clear that moving forward, things would change. While she did not care about gossip, she firmly warned that any rumors interfering with her duties would not be tolerated. She emphasized her primary objective, leading the Dark Knights to victory in the impending battle against the Demon Lord. June declared her commitment to the prosperity of the Dark Knights, promising to eliminate problems and reward good deeds as needed. She concluded her speech by invoking the eternal glory of the Dark Knights, honoring their legacy as the heirs of heroes and protectors of warriors. After June finished her speech, Mayor initiated applause, and one by one, the rest of the knights followed suit. Internally, June found their reaction amusing, knowing it was exaggerated. She admitted to herself that she had deliberately mentioned topics Mayor often emphasized, such as the Demon Lord, to elicit this response. Having addressed the rumors, she felt confident that the knights would now be more cautious about spreading baseless stories. She resolved to back up her words with actions. With her speech concluded, June transitioned to announcing her plans for the special unit. She explained that this unit was designed to ensure the effective growth of its members and would be granted priority access to all dungeons. Her announcement of dungeon priority left some knights visibly surprised. June clarified that only the most talented knights with the greatest potential would be personally selected by her for the unit. While they were free to decline their appointment, they would not be given a second chance to join. She ended her declaration by stating that those chosen would be informed individually, leaving the knights deep in thought about the opportunities and expectations ahead. The vice captain might help the knights gain the support of his grace. However, one of the knights, visibly angry, voiced her distrust of June. She accused June of potentially selecting weak individuals like herself and complained about the perceived unfairness towards those not close to her. June, observing this reaction, reflected on the irony. Previously, these same knights mocked anyone interested in joining the special unit, but now they were upset about being excluded. Confident in her plan, June believed that once the special unit started achieving success, these detractors would quickly change their tune and focus on seeking her favor. For now, their complaints didn't concern her much, as she remained focused on moving forward with her vision.